Hey everyone, it's your buddy back again with another exciting fanfic, which is what if Naruto had Boruto's powers and traveled back in time part 1. If you enjoy this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more fanfics like this. Now, let's dive right into the fanfic. Two figures both dressed in near pitch black wanderer cloaks, both standing at heights of approximately 190 to 192 centimeters, could be seen from the large gates of the Hidden Leaf Village, with the eternal Chunin, Kotetsu and Izumo still monitoring people who enter and exit the village even when it has been 24 years after the Fourth Great Shinobi War and 3 years since Momoshiki and Kinshiki Otsutsuki had invaded. As the two figures loomed larger towards the gates, Kotetsu and Izumo had their jaws hanging. Kotetsu said in disbelief, "No way. Is that?" Izumo answered, "Yes, it is, they're back." In excitement for who they saw. One figure had dark blue tinted hair which was almost impossible to see since it was so dark that it appeared black, fashioned in a way so that he had a bang covering his left eye and a stoic face that seemed to have no apparent emotion on it, but his one visible black pupilled eye would tell he was happy to be home. This was Sasuke Uchiha, the current Snake Sannin, head of the Uchiha clan, hero of the world alongside Naruto Uzumaki, the Orange Hokage. Now, the master of Boruto Uzumaki, who was walking besides him. Boruto had went through dramatic changes, being his height had shot through the roof, already being the same height as his father, Naruto, at the age of 15. His hair, whilst shapely the same, was longer and fluffier, with his matured facial features such as a scar running down his right eye along with a blue tattoo marking that had gifted him the power of an Otsutsuki as well as a sign of defeating a higher level being. When the two walked right past the two shocked Chunin, the two had took in the sight of the even more developed Hidden Leaf, taking in the sight of much taller and larger buildings made out of steel and enhanced glass rather than the traditional stone and wood. Television displays almost everywhere on every building, but what stood out the most was the road leading to the Hokage Tower. It had not changed too much in general. The bento store was still there along with his mothers and sisters, Hinata and Himawari Uzumaki respectively. Favorite dessert restaurant was there, and finally the general ninja store. Boruto in his new deep voice spoke in a moment of nostalgia. "So much has changed, yet I know I'm back home." His master Sasuke had heard this and replied, "Yeah, the world along with the times may change, but the heart of it never will, Boruto." Boruto nodded slightly in acknowledgement. Over the 3 years with his master, Boruto had become much more patient and less annoying. Sasuke welcomed the quieter demeanor, though he hates to admit he did rather miss the cheery son of his best friend who would shout his catchphrase, "Dadbasa," so whenever his pupil did say it, it brought a smile to his face. As much as Boruto wanted to run around the village and explore what's new and trending, such as the latest video game, his well-practiced self-restraint he had achieved over the years had prevented him from doing as such. After all, his master was not one to beat around the bush when it came to training and demanded full attention. So, the duo for now, were heading towards the Hokage Tower to check in with his father, Naruto, the 7th Hokage. With Naruto was on his laptop alongside two clones to handle the now lessened amount of paperwork due to the fact Katasuke and his R&D department had developed more efficient methods of processing data and information via the new IT systems and Wi-Fi connections, making the position of Hokage much easier to handle, as well as the 5-Kage Summit's meetings if one can't make it to the designated meeting point. As all the work he was doing was almost done, he took a moment to stand up and look out the window to observe the village, his family, that he watches over. Remembering all the times he had with them, how they made him the man he was now, glowing in pride of how they all work and support each other. Until eventually, he had a family of his own. Hinata Uzumaki, formerly Hyuga. After many years of her quietly giving her support to him, and he at times when she made a larger effort to get his attention, he acknowledged her, then respected her as much as he respected a Kage, then admired her more than his idols, and finally, after learning more about his heart and emotions, discovered that he was cluelessly in love with her. Quite a cheesy story, but sweet nonetheless. As Naruto thought about his dear wife more, He could never comprehend the fact about how she kept getting better and better with each passing day, be it her kindness, her radiant beauty, or her determination. He often wondered, why the heck did fall in love with a chump like me instead of some guy worthy of her? But with the way she has always supported him and taught him the best and worst of things, she always made him want to be a better man. Then came their daughter, Himawari Uzumaki, his youngest child and only daughter, his family's sweet little princess who knocked his shit out on the day of inauguration. Naruto's sweat dropped and flushed in embarrassment for being bested by his then toddler daughter. Think about it, the strongest shinobi in history who could take dozens of Chidoris, not have his skull crushed by landing on his head from a vast height, capable of opening all his tenketsu if his wife was mad about not getting some action or wanted to demonstrate to their children some gentle step techniques and could dodge light speed attacks, got knocked out by a little girl who just awoken their Byakugan. Speaking of which, the last 3 years had been going well for his daughter. Hinata had begun taking Himawari to their grandfather Hiyashi's and Aunt Hanabi's training quarters to begin her kunoichi training. She had immediately shown the most potential in the Hyuga Taijutsu after 1 month of training, which even the elders have admitted was far more than what even their uncle Neji had brought out. By the end of the first year, Himawari had managed to successfully complete the 1000 needles training on her first try, only by the end of it having a sweaty forehead and slightly messy hair which she had grown it out down her shoulders. An accomplishment that made the family so proud and delighted they threw an Uzumaki-style party, which was introduced to them by Karen who happened to visit that day. That was one of the first times even Choji said, "There is way too much food." But with the whole Akamichi clan there, along with Naruto, his queen of gluttony Hinata by his side and her little heiress to that title, Himawari, they had no problem eating it all. Then 2 years pass. Himawari was truly daddy's little girl. Her chakra reserves, although pale in comparison to his own, were already high Junin level, making Naruto cry out of joy, meaning his daughter could become the first Hyuga sage. Even better, when Hinata, Hiyashi, Hanabi and Naruto were observing her sparring 5 of the Hyuga's best lineups at once, they had noticed that her style, despite being almost identical to Hinata's gentle step, Himawari used more swift spins and twirls whilst using sharp hand slashes to close multiple foes' tenketsu at once, and also when she used the rotation, it left visible cuts on people in the surrounding area. This prompted Naruto to activate his Sage mode and check her chakra affinity. She had a wind affinity with a secondary for water just like him. Naruto was happy that even he had something to pass on to his daughter. The first jutsu he had taught was his own version of the Hyuga Air Palm, Naruto's Hyuga Special, Wind Release, Drilling Air Wave. By the 3rd year, Himawari had passed her genin exams without a problem. The one thing that the Uzumaki family shared was hard work and determination. And finally, his admittingly favorite child, his eldest and only son, Boruto Uzumaki. Although after Naruto first became Hokage, their relationship was becoming rocky, but after Boruto's Chunin exams and the Otsutsuki invasion, things had become even better than before between the two of them. Once the Chunin exam studium was repaired and help was sent to Kumo to assist Killer Bee's lack of the 8 tails, Boruto and the rest of the contestants were given another chance at the Chunin exams. With Boruto winning the entire event without any form of cheating, much to the jargon of his opponents who thought he was nothing without the scientific ninja tool in his own joy. However, after all that, Sasuke, who was training him, had informed him of a discovery on Boruto. His right eye was a brand new dojutsu. Flashback. 3 years ago, after the Kurigakure excursion, Sasuke had told him that whatever curse mark Boruto received from defeating Momoshiki had evolved into a special type of Sage Mode seal, not too unlike Orochimaru's old curse marks, but more powerful and barely any consequences. This had also caused Boruto's dojutsu to fully awaken. Naruto, curious about this discovery, asked son Boruto, "Would you like to show your old man your eye?" Boruto grinned, "Heck yeah. Check it out, Dad." Whilst opening his right eye, Naruto noted how Boruto's eye still looked normal. except for the lack of a pupil, and it was a much brighter blue that glowed like his laptop screen on standby mode. Naruto asked him, "How does every look to you through that eye? All these blue lines and everything." Boruto closed his left eye and looked around with only his right eye. Then he shook his head. He replied, "Nope. Everything is clearer and more colorful like HD TV, but not by much, Dadbasa." Cheerfully. Naruto thought about it for a bit until Sasuke told Boruto. "Boruto, channel your chakra into your right eye." Sasuke instructed him. Boruto nodded and responded, "Yes, master." Then Boruto closed his eyes and then opened them again. His right eye's iris glowed brighter whilst the whites of his eye washed away into a matte black. Naruto was stunned by the appearance of his son's dojutsu. This was not the Byakugan, or the Tenseigan for that matter. He asked about it some more. According to Boruto and Sasuke, Boruto's dojutsu gives him all the abilities that a typical set of Byakugan would give a user. When Naruto asked about his blind spot, Boruto's exact reaction was, the Byakugan has a blind spot. Tsubasa, I can see everything around me including your hidden stash of photos you secretly take of mom." Naruto immediately flushed red and sputtered whilst Sasuke chuckled at the discovery. Flashback end. Naruto blushed at that memory. It's not his fault that his wife was so damn gorgeous, but when she complains about your thing makes giving birth something painless compared to your junior, you can't help but want to see your wife's naked body again. So, a stash of frequently updated photos had to do for now. Back on track, Naruto back then decided to spar Boruto himself. Naruto obviously had the upper hand. However, when Naruto was about to land a Rasengan into Boruto, he had vanished into lightning bolts. Naruto was caught off guard by this as well as Sasuke, who hid it better, but smirked. Boruto then appeared behind Naruto and landed a palm strike through his back, giving the win to Boruto. They had discovered that whatever new dojutsu he had awakened, it allowed Boruto to warp between dimensions and on a lesser scale, alter his position in time and space. It was like Sasuke's Rinne Sharingan ability, however, Boruto had a much easier time warping that he did. Boruto then mentioned that some white-haired guy in his dreams, no homo, had called his eye, the pure eye, or Jogan. After this, Sasuke requested that he will take Boruto on as his apprentice on his journeys. Heck, Sasuke was even begging to take him on as his disciple. Naruto, after a talk with Hinata, agreed to it. After all, Boruto's dojutsu, despite having the same abilities as the Byakugan, had a unique ability that only Sasuke could help Boruto with. Not to mention, his Jogan's easier time seeing and crossing dimensions would be helpful in Sasuke's investigations on the Otsutsuki clan. Not to mention, it was a nice bonus that Boruto had inherited Hinata's affinity for lightning. Yes, Hinata is a lightning user. I don't know where the whole, she has water affinity, came from. The Naruto online game even says she's a lightning user, with a secondary affinity for fire. As Boruto and Sasuke left on their training trip, they discussed about teaching Boruto the Chidori and making a lightning-style variant of the Rasengan, a task Kakashi and Sasuke had failed in. A knock on the door to his office had brought him back to reality. He turned around and saw that his clones had dispelled themselves as all the paperwork had been finished. He responded, "Come in." In his Hokage mode. When the door opened, his eyes lit up in joy. Forgetting his position, he walked up to the visitor and pulled them into a tight hug that they returned just as passionately. Naruto exclaimed, "Boruto, welcome home my boy. It's good to see you again, Dadbao." Boruto pulled away with a cheerful face he hadn't pulled in a while. "It's good to see you too, Dad, Tsubasa." In a quieter, yet delighted tone. Boruto looked at his dad and was happy he was just as tall as him. Although his dad looked at first exactly the same. He took note of the fact that his father's build was much leaner yet broader, as his shoulders were more apparent as well as his chest. Boruto knew that his dad was training a lot more now that he had more time. He couldn't wait to see what his dad could do now. Then Sasuke made his presence known. "Yo, Naruto, long time no see." Sasuke greeted with a genuine smile. Naruto grinned at him. Good to see you again too, Sasuke. Man, it's been 3 years since you guys left for that training trip. You two probably have tons to tell us, and I think Hinata and Hima-chan will want to see you, Boruto. Boruto smiled. I can't wait to see Mom and Himawari again. I wonder how she has been without me, he said absent-mindedly at the end as he remembered how she cried and clung onto him as he was leaving the village. Naruto was thinking for a minute, and as soon as his clones dispelled, a bulb lit up. I know. We'll throw party and get everyone together, Datbeo. Naruto exclaimed excitedly. Boruto and Sasuke smiled at their father, best friend. Whenever he said his catchphrase nowadays, it meant something big was going to happen. The Hyuga Dojo. Hinata was dressed in one of the Hyuga clan's training suits, which showed off all of Hinata's years of harsh training, which kept her young for the next decade or two. Her hair was done in a ponytail for the occasion. That occasion? Sparring with her now 13-year-old daughter, Himawari, who was dressed much the same way as her mother, fitting her developing figure. Hinata noted that Himawari was quite matured for her age, even more so than Hinata was at that age, and maybe just a tad bit leaner. Also, she knew from how much she had grown in height, Himawari definitely did not get Naruto's height, but the most prominent feature on her daughter was her hair, which was now down to her mid-back. Himawari looked almost like her mother, except she had blue sparkling eyes and her long bangs, which would have framed her adorable face that had Naruto's round cheeks were pulled behind her ears. Also, Himawari had a little antenna of hair on top, as well as the rest that her hair, being just as silky as Hinata's, was more twirled and intertwined as it fell. Back to their spar, Hinata was taking a few steps back from her daughter, who charged at her. Himawari sent a palm strike towards Hinata with her right arm, which Hinata twirled around, then transitioned into a leg sweep with her left leg, hoping to trip her mother over. However, Hinata simply cartwheeled over her Himawari whilst at the same time pushing her by placing her right arm on Himawari's back. Himawari went sliding a few meters away, but readied herself once more for one last attack. Hinata then readied herself also. She had a feeling that her daughter would be using her newest and most powerful guest right. Himawari charged at her whilst she was spinning to gain momentum, then once she got close enough to her mother, she started kicking whilst gathering chakra. Hinata began to take evasive maneuvers whilst unleashing small amounts of chakra burst to block Himawari's other whirling kicks. Himawari yelled, "Ha! Tatsumaki! Kaden!" As soon as she ended her exclamation, she had begun to spin wildly, with her chakra enveloping her, taking on a disc-like shape, and her kicks begun to constantly rain on Hinata. Hinata, despite being under pressure, she used her protection of 64 palms to defend against her daughter's attack. The result was a huge shockwave that cracked the main house's dojo's floors. Once the dust cleared up, Hinata could be seen standing whilst panting, whereas Himawari was on the ground breathing hard. Hinata smiled. Even though her daughter had her father's stamina, she also had the same difficulty in mastering her technique's efficiencies. This just meant that Himawari needed to work more on her chakra control. Hinata then told her, "You did very well today, Himawari-chan. You are getting better each day, keep up the hard work." She encouraged with a strong emphasis on work ethic. Himawari managed to squeak out, "Why yes, mama. But I'm so tired, wah, Hamburg steak." Hinata chuckled at her daughter's antics. Despite being like her in many ways, she was every bit as carefree and hyperactive as her father and brother. Let alone not no way near shy. Then she heard a voice that belonged to her sister, Hanabi Hyuga, current head of the Hyuga clan. "Wow, you two were amazing. I need to watch out if I plan on staying clan head." Hanabi jested. Hinata smiled warmly at her younger sister, who grew up to be a fine young woman with a delicate and petite frame. Long dark brown hair that was tied around the middle back portion, and she was of course dressed in an autumn-colored kimono dress shirt and red samurai pants. Hinata replied, "I don't think you need to worry, Hanabi-chan. None of us want to become clan head, isn't that right, Hima-chan?" She asked her tired daughter. Himawari grinned widely and exclaimed, "Yeah. No one else can be clan head besides Auntie, because mommy is already my mommy. The strongest girl in the world. Datbasa. Hinata and Hanabi giggled at the young girl's logic. Then Hinata, with a rare mischievous glint in her moon-like eyes, which came from spending too much time with Naruto, decided to tease Hanabi. She's right, you know, Hanabi, you have to wait until Konohamaru-kun will ask you out on a date. Hinata teased. Hanabi erupted in a red hue. Hinata laughed quietly. It wasn't a secret that the two young rivals were, secretly, spending time with each other and texting each other when they could due to Boruto's blackmail. Hanabi then tried to reason, I can't, you know, the clan laws and stuff. Hinata shook her head in amusement at the bad cover-up. Why? Contrary to what others may think, there was a huge misconception that people had of the Hyuga clan being nobles. They weren't by law. They just followed the traditional clan lifestyle and rules. But weren't nobles due to being a shinobi clan. In other words, they were a big family that just had a lot of money and a lot of influence along with a fearsome reputation as ninjas. To nobles, they were just another ninja clan. So, the whole, arranged marriage thing, selective groom choices and meeting with nobles was all bogus. Otherwise, Ino would have been bombarded with tons of marriage forms instead of annoying dates. Then Himawari unintentionally made things worse for her auntie. Yay! Big brother Konohamaru is going to be my uncle, Datbasa. She exclaimed excitedly whilst still on the floor. Hanabi turned as red as Hinata used to as she playfully glared at her niece whilst Hinata struggled to contain her laughter. However, someone's aged laughter wasn't contained. Ha ha ha. Don't be so shy, Hanabi. You can date anyone you want. After all, your father wants to see more grandchildren filling in these rooms. Ha ha ha. Hiyashi said. Hanabi was mortified, whilst Hinata started letting her laughter out and Himawari just laughed at her auntie's embarrassed face. Then someone else entered the room and announced their presence. Naruto greeted loudly, Yo! Hinata, Himawari, Hanabi and father, good to see you're all having fun. With a cheesy grin he rarely wore nowadays. Hinata's eyes lit up at the sight of him. Naruto-kun, how was your day? She greeted and asked him whilst she went up to him to give him a kiss. Naruto gladly returned it, more than he should have as he forced his tongue in to deepen the kiss and savor the cinnamon flavor of her mouth. This time, it was Hanabi's turn to smirk while Hiyashi shook his head at the scene, but Himawari got up and cheered for her parents whilst running up to them. Naruto and Hinata both separated as Himawari jumped on them into a big hug. While that was happening, a deep but familiar voice got their attention. Hey, you got room for one more? The new voice said. Hinata and Himawari looked up at the person and their breathing slowed. Hinata stammered out whilst having tears well up in her eyes. Boruto-kun. She said his name in disbelief whilst walking up to him and touching his face just to see she wasn't dreaming. Boruto smiled to his mother. Yes, it is Mom, I'm back. He replied. Hinata then brought her baby boy into a tight hug whilst saying, Welcome back, and, I missed you so much. Boruto returned the hug of course with passion. He was definitely a mama's boy, even having the same lightning affinity as her and craving for sweets. Once Hinata let Boruto go, she noticed how tall he had become. He was already on his way to becoming taller than her husband and his father. Naruto was 190 centimeters, and that was pretty damn tall. However, she was knocked out of her daze when Himawari tackled her older brother into a kamikaze hug, which she hasn't done in over 3 years. Big brother, you're back. You're back home. Datbasa. She cried out, clinging onto him. Boruto managed to catch his little sister due to having better reflexes from Sasuke's training. He grinned cheekily at Himawari, something that he only did when he was really excited nowadays. Yeah, I'm back, Hima-chan. I missed you a lot and I can't wait to train with you, Datbasa. He exclaimed excitedly. The two siblings laughed amongst themselves, forgetting about their surroundings, until their grandfather, Hiyashi, gripped them both into a tight hug that Boruto, no matter how much he would train, can never escape. Boruto. Himawari. Your grandpa is happy to see you both, Hiyashi said. The rest of the family began to swarm the hugging trio. Everyone was now cuddling up with each other. Father, mother, son, daughter, auntie and grandfather were reunited. Until a certain trademark grunt came from the entrance of the Hyuga dojo. Oi Naruto, aren't you going to announce what you have planned later this evening? Sasuke reminded Naruto. Naruto then broke away from the family hug and flashed him a grin. Oh yeah, I was going to tell everyone that since Boruto is back, we're going to throw a party. The Uzumaki way, Naruto announced. Himawari cheered. Boruto and his mother smiled in glee. Hanabi had stars in her eyes at the announcement. Hiyashi had a hidden glint in his eyes and Sasuke shook his head whilst smirking and muttered, Ujiratonkachi, quietly. 3 hours later, during the evening, at the Uchiha residence, Sasuke had just arrived at his home. He was looking forward to seeing his wife, Sakura Uchiha and his daughter Sarada Uchiha. As soon as he opened the door, he saw his bright pink angel waiting for him with a kind smile he loves and open arms. Sakura greeted him, welcome home, Sasuke-kun. And then they were brought into a heated kiss which lasted about 5 minutes until a smooth, cool voice interrupted. Hello Papa, I see you couldn't wait for your favorite mom-flavored dish. Sarada teased. Sasuke and Sakura immediately pulled apart with Sasuke taking on a noticeable red hue much to Sakura's and Sarada's amusement. As Sasuke examined his daughter, he noticed that she was about as tall as Sakura was, 160 centimeters, dressed in a red sleeveless kipao dress, white shorts with black biker shorts underneath that reached mid-thigh, black shinobi sandals that were knee-high and white arm cloth around her forearms. Of course, she was wearing her red-framed glasses. And her dark hair was much longer, reaching her shoulders, but styled in a similar way to Sasuke's. Sasuke for a second thought that if he were a girl, he would have easily looked like his daughter. Especially when she acted just as cool and aloof as he did. Sakura then chimed in, now Sarada. You missed your father, and most of all, Boruto-kun. Making Sarada glow red for a bit. Sasuke's eyebrow twitched a bit. Sarada looked away stormily and proclaimed, and no. I don't like Boruto that way. Not in the slightest. Sakura then teased, I never said that you liked him, only that you miss him. After all, he was all you talked about for the last 3 years. Sarada flushed and stopped talking, making her mother laugh out loud. Sasuke would have listened to his wife laugh all day, but the thought of his daughter having feelings for his student weirded him out. Why? Boruto and Sarada acted so much like Naruto and himself respectively, when they were genin that the thought of them dating made him want to puke. To get his mind off of that, he decided to get straight to the point and tell them about the party being held at the Hyuga compound. Oi, you two get ready, Naruto's family is throwing a party at the Hyuga compound in about 30 minutes, so no playing on your phones. He told them. They nodded and went to get ready. As Sarada was getting dressed in a short black skirt, white button-up dress shirt and a red blazer with black stockings. She looked at herself in the mirror in her bedroom and admired her appearance. She then thought about Boruto and wondered if he'd find her pretty. After that was done, she headed downstairs to see her mother and father waiting for her all dressed up in their usual outfits. Then they headed towards the Hyuga compound. At the Hyuga compound, Boruto was wandering around the Hyuga dojo observing 7 clan members sparring before the party began. Boruto suppressed the urge to smirk. Burning off calories before the big feast, smart. He mused. On that note, he decided to join in. After all, it's been a while since he last sparred and didn't want to be rusty. He called out to them, hey, you guys mind if I join? He asked them. They turned to him and bowed. Oh, Lord Boruto, yes, it'd be an honor to spar with the heroes and Byakugan princess's son. They all said. Boruto told them to ease up on the formalities and just treat him as an equal. Then they got to sparring. One by one, the Hyuga took their gentle fist stance whilst Boruto stood with his right arm raised a little with that same side of his body angled towards them. After a few seconds, Boruto saw that neither of the Hyugas were going to make a move, so he decided to set the pace. Instantly Boruto appeared in front of 3 Hyuga. He then pushed the one in front of him onto the ground with a well-mastered palm strike and used the forward momentum to transition into a handstand, then split-kicked the other 2 Hyuga towards the others. 1 down, 6 to go. As the 4 helped steady their companions, they agreed to take him seriously, and all activated their Byakugan. Boruto in response took his mother's gentle step stance. Then the 4 of the Hyuga surrounded him in a box formation and began trying to close his tenketsu with various finger thrust. Boruto, despite his superior speed and agility, was hard-pressed to keep dodging and had to make use of chakra burst from his tenketsu to angle some of their blows away. Unfortunately, Boruto was caught up with dodging that he almost didn't notice the other 2 Hyuga coming from above. Boruto, realizing he had to use his Jogan to see all the blows coming, saw the other coming from above. Usually there would be no way out. However, Boruto used the one technique that his master, Sasuke, had taught him to harness over the years, dimension warping. He warped himself out of danger, letting the other Hyuga hit nothing but air, making them all pause for a split second in wonderment. This was all Boruto needed. He then gathered chakra in his right palm and made it spin in a spiral before thrusting it out in a large pressure wave. He shouted, lightning style, air palm. The remaining 6 Hyuga were all hit by the jutsu, but unlike the normal air palm which pushed its target's away, Boruto's lightning version phased through them with lightning chakra and temporarily paralyzes them. Boruto then body flickered and summoned 5 clones to hold them at bay, signifying his win. Boruto smiled, and released his clones whilst relenting himself. You guys are good, making me use my dojutsu at the last moment. If I didn't, then I'd be a goner. Boruto complimented. All the Hyuga thanked him for the spar and they all agreed to head to the party. The party area, Hyuga compound. Once Boruto got to the party area, he saw nearly enough food and beverages for the annual Konoha festival. He even saw the stage prepared for whatever his family had in mind. Whilst he was walking around, he heard a gasp making him turn his head toward its direction. He saw a young woman his age. He knew how, that long purple hair, that purple Anbu-style blouse, violet kunoichi pants along with blue sandals were hard not to recognize. Boruto shot her a grin. Long time no see, Sumair. He greeted her before she jumped onto him into a hug. Sumair cheered into his ear, Boruto-kun. I missed you so much. Before letting him go, allowing Boruto to quickly take a good look at Sumair before fighting the urge to blush. She had sure grown during his absence, with her new assets, and overall, an hourglass figure that most models would kill to have, along with her cute, small face. Boruto was right to presume she was turning a lot of heads. However, Boruto left that in the back of his mind and asked her about what has been going on and what has changed during the last 3 years. After a couple of minutes talking and catching up, he had another group come by. He saw Shikadai dressed up in a yellow and black jacket with dark gray pants. Inojin, who wore pretty much the same outfit, just larger. Iwabe, who still looked pretty much the same, just older. Denki with his laptop and smartwatch ninja tool, dressed in a western suit in blue blazer and dark navy suit pants. His hair was also longer, but pretty much the same. Boruto walked up to them and greeted them. Yo guys, it's cool to see you guys again. So, what have you guys been up to? Boruto asked. Shikadai replied, well, not much besides leveling up on the sequel of that game we all play together. In a lazy manner. Inojin then went in. Not much went on for him, but yeah, we all did a lot more training, both shinobi arts and gaming. And I've been drawing a lot with your sister over the past 3 years. Inojin informed. Boruto nodded and smiled. He was glad that his younger sister wasn't completely alone, as Inojin must have kept her company. That alone was enough for Boruto to give his blessing to date his family's little princess, if he ever thought about. Denki then added, ah, well, There are some new burger joints you probably want to try out soon. I collected some coupons for you whilst you were gone, so I can't wait to hang out with you again, Boruto. He said in excitement. Boruto flashed his old cheesy grin at Denki, his best friend since the academy. Especially since he collected coupons for him. And then Iwabe joined in, yeah. Other than that, you and I got to spar soon, I'm sure I can beat you this time, Boruto. Boruto gave him a smirk, anytime Iwabe, Datbasa. They all had a good laugh and they began to converse with each other whilst enjoying the party food and drinks. As time passed, one loud voice called out to Boruto making him look at them and he saw Chow Chow. Chubbier than before and dressed in a pink kimono and baggy shorts. Oi, Boruto, save some for me. Munch, Chow Chow told him whilst eating 3 dango sticks at once. Boruto's sweat dropped and laughed in amusement at her antics. He really missed all his friends. As he looked her way again, he noticed one more person behind her. This girl really caught his eye. He first started from the bottom looking at this girl's slender yet toned legs clad in thigh-high black socks and dark red high heels, a short black skirt that stopped mid-thigh, then her slim upper body dressed in a white frilly button-up shirt and a rose-red blazer. Then he saw the girl's narrow, yet beautiful face. She had dark long hair like silk that stopped past her shoulders, and red frame glasses. As soon as Boruto saw the glasses, he immediately suppressed the urge to compliment this woman's appearance. This was Sarada Uchiha. She sure did grow to be very pretty, but as his rival, he would never admit that to her face. So, he kept using the excuse, she's not pretty. She looks and acts like a female version of her dad. A very pretty version, damn it, get a grip Boruto. Sarada then spoke up in cool, smooth voice. Nice to see that you're back, idiot Boruto. Sarada addressed him with a cocky smirk. Boruto grinned, good to see you too, Sarada. Now that I'm back, I think I'm ready to beat you down. Datbasa. Sarada smiled at his verbal tick. Despite his quieter personality, he was still the same Boruto on the inside. She then added, you really are an idiot, Sarada ended passionately. Boruto looked around a bit more and noticed something. Hey Sarada, where's Mitsuki in Metal? He asked. Sarada responded, he's with his mother. Father. Whatever gender he is, yeah, he's with his parent Orochimaru for training in Metal is with his dad training and working on his nervousness. Boruto nodded, making he and all his friends celebrate his homecoming. The party was loud and fun, with various performances by the Hyuga, Inojin's animated storytelling and his father, since a lot of kids were around, sang the Tailed Beast countdown song he used to sing as a lullaby to he and his younger sister when they were babies. Once the performances were over, people started getting really full. Naruto and Boruto were almost stuffed, but what really took the cake was Hinata and Himawari, who had eaten more than half the Akamichi clan themselves. Since Naruto and Sasuke were too full, they decided to drink themselves crazy, getting drunk to the point they started arguing whose wife was better. Naruto began with, Oi Tem. My Hinata is way better than Sakura-chan, Tabeo. Earning a blush from his wife and a tick mark growing on Sasuke's forehead. Sasuke rebutted, no she isn't, Sakura has bright pink hair, bright emerald eyes and a shining personality that pushes all the darkest out of my life, Yujiro Tonkachi. What's better than that? Which made Sakura blush at his statement. Naruto then grinned and replied, Hinata's long dark indigo hair, which looks like the night sky, eyes that put the full moon to shame, flawless creamy skin that drives me crazy and so kind and caring, she's like the undying light who lights up my world, Dadbeo. In a drunken slur, Hinata blushed even more, a shade she hasn't turned since her Chunin days. Sasuke got even more ticked off and shot back, Sakura's got the tightest waist and best childbearing hips that I love grabbing. Sakura took on a red hue of embarrassment whilst her friends chuckled at her usually reserved husband and, Naruto then took on a serious look and fought back. Hinatas are the best. Better yet, she even has the world's greatest jiggly fun bags that hypnotizes me over and over, not even genjutsu can affect me anymore, Tabeo. He yelled back. Hinata went red out of embarrassment and flattery, much like Sakura. But even better, all what their husbands said, was what they really believed. But the argument had to be stopped. Hinata approached her husband from behind and used a Juken strike to render him unconscious, whilst Sakura knocked Sasuke out with a light punch. The two women then excused themselves from the party to head back home with their drunk husbands with one thought in mind. Sakura and Hinata both thought, he is so getting some tonight. For Sakura, she just wanted her precious Sasuke-kun to go wild on her. For Hinata, since Naruto did it with her the week before and her hips were still sore due to his stamina, and his appendage being much too large to the point that she preferred the experience of childbirth rather than the pain of taking his thing in. This time, she was looking forward to it. Her husband was drunk and maybe he'd use his chakra chains to tie himself onto the bed, so she could do whatever she wanted. The next day, the Uzumaki residence. Boruto and Himawari arrived home together last night and immediately went to sleep as their parents weren't up. In reality, Hinata active the sound seals Naruto made for their room whenever they decided to get frisky. Boruto in the morning woke up early, due to Sasuke's influence, and saw no one in the kitchen. He then fixed himself a good bowl of cereal with pieces of fruit for breakfast before doing anything else. As he was eating, he pondered on what he should do: hang out with his friends at the shopping centers to get him on that new game, chill with Denki at any burger joints, train with Sarada, or wait for Himawari to wake up. As he was thinking, he heard someone come into the dining room. Naruto said, "Morning, Boruto, how everything going?" he asked at the end in a somewhat groggy state. Boruto likewise did the same. They ended up talking for a few minutes, sharing what has been going on with their lives and adventures. As breakfast came to an end, Boruto then asked his father, "Dad, can you please fight with me at one of the training grounds?" he asked, surprising Naruto. Naruto smiled and said, "Sure. But why?" he asked in curiosity. Any time Boruto fought with him, it was usually to one-up him. Now though, he was at a complete loss. Boruto then reasoned, "I want to see where I stack up against you when I try my hardest. Most of all, I want to see how far my ninja way has taken me." Naruto smiled at his son and agreed to it. Training Ground 7. After Boruto and Naruto got dressed in their usual clothes, they body flickered to Training Ground 7, an important place to Naruto filled with memories. Naruto began. "We're here, now, shall we, Boruto?" he rhetorically asked. Boruto nodded but requested one thing. "Before that, I want you to use your full power, Dad," Boruto requested. Naruto's eyes widened a bit. He questioned him. Boruto explained, "The only times I have ever seen you use your strength, you were always handicapped by either other people you needed to protect or had most of your energy drained. Right now, Dad, you're in peak condition and I want to fight against that, no bars holding you back." Naruto let it sink in before taking in a deep breath. Suddenly, Naruto opened his eyes revealing golden irises with cross-like pupils, with a horizontal bar and a vertical slit cutting through the middle, signifying his ascension into six-paths sage mode. Then Naruto took it a step further and stacked his Suido 10 Tails chakra mode, or six paths enhanced yin-yang Kurama cloak, enveloping Naruto in a coat of orange chakra with black and orange ceiling markings he had added on over the years to allow better synergy. Boruto, hiding his shock and nervousness, smiled at the response whilst he sweat dropped. How the hell can one person handle so much chakra without any drawbacks? Boruto thought to himself, looks like Master Sasuke wasn't kidding when he said his dad had more chakra than the entire allied nations combined. Naruto then asked his son, "This good enough for you?" Boruto nodded and brought out his sword knowing that he would need it to keep up with his dad. Naruto made no change in his posture, which made Boruto warp behind him using his Jogan to hopefully catch his dad off guard. However, Naruto saw it coming and simply used a left roundhouse kick to hit him into the trees. Boruto hit a few dozen trees hard. He could not believe how much power was in that simply kick. This was the pressure his master rivaled. Getting those thoughts out of his head, Boruto quickly recovered and activated his Jogan at its current max to wrap himself back to where his father was. The distance was about 1 kilometer away, so it took more chakra to wrap him there to the point lightning came forth from his right eye and shrouded him before making him vanish. Boom! He was back to where his father was waiting for him, with a gold rosin shuriken in his right hand which he tossed at him, like it was a completely ordinary Fuma shuriken. Boruto charged his body with lightning chakra to speed up his body before body flickering away from the rosin shuriken that went straight up into the air. He then dashed towards his father once more with a lightning Rasengan tossed towards Naruto. Boruto said in his mind, lightning style, rosin Tesla core. As the storm of high current electricity came Naruto's way, he simply unleashed a trio volley of wind great breakthroughs to cancel it. As he did this, however, Boruto used this opportunity to appear underneath his father. With wind channeling through his sword, he slashed upwards towards his father. Naruto, who was honestly caught off guard, used one technique he rarely resorted to unless absolutely necessary. He flashed away somewhere, leaving on a trace of yellow behind. Boruto's eyes widened. The Flying Thunder God technique, invented by the second Hokage, Tobirama Senju, then mastered by his grandfather, Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage. Then later mastered by his own father, who studied the technique as he was studying to become Hokage and learning how to take care of children. He should have known that his dad would have used it, but how? He didn't see any of his kunai. Boruto used his Jogan's 360 field of vision and found his father flying in the air with the gold rosin shuriken he threw earlier. Boruto thought, so that's how he did it. He used the chakra in his rosin shuriken as the beacon to warp to. He concluded. After all, his dad was the current world's greatest seal master, and any sealing practitioner would know that chakra is the greatest medium for seals. Naruto then supercharged the rosin shuriken in his possession to that of a colossal size. He told Boruto, "Get ready for this, son." Whilst he hurled towards Boruto. Boruto was shocked at how fast the projectile was moving. He knew from his master uncle that dodging it would be pointless since it could expand. Boruto resorted to using his Jogan at the last minute to warp himself out of there using the rest of his chakra. However, when this was played into action, his Jogan reacted to Naruto's rosin shuriken's chakra and began absorbing the energy whilst Boruto was warping. The way Boruto's warping worked was by changing his position in space without affecting time, but with Naruto's chakra that transcends time itself added to the mix. His Jogan began changing his place in time, space, making him warp to not just another location, but a different time. Naruto sensed something was wrong. As soon as he sensed it, he teleported to where his rosin shuriken was and used his new prosthetic arm to absorb his technique to stop any damage from occurring. Once he finished, he saw Boruto getting sucked into a portal originating from his right eye. Naruto screamed, "Boruto!" He reached out to him, but it was too late. Boruto disappeared, his chakra signature was gone. Naruto sensed all the nations, then he added more natural energy to further his senses. Nothing. Boruto was gone as if he never existed. Naruto deactivated his power-ups and began hyperventilating. His son, his boy, his pride and joy, his precious baby boy was gone to who knows where. The only relief he had was that his son wasn't dead. His fatherly instincts told him that. Not being able to handle the severity of the situation, he passed out. Konoha. Training Grounds 7, 20 years in the past. In the middle of the empty training grounds, Boruto suddenly appeared out of a spiraling rip in space which spewed him out. Boruto ended up on his knees due to chakra exhaustion and closed his right eye to save himself from the pain. He then looked around with only his left eye and took note of the 3 logs and tree line looking much younger. The landscape was also free from any damage that should have occurred from his battle with his father. Boruto had one conclusion in mind but needed to look around a bit more. Traveling to other dimensions wasn't anything new to him, as that was what Sasuke was teaching him as part of his training. He also taught that the very first thing he must do after traveling to another dimension, he should look around. He decided to do just that whilst he stuck on a chakra replenishment band on his neck to restore his chakra gradually. He was already feeling much better, so he took off in the direction of the village for more information. Meanwhile, Boruto was walking to the gates. A certain blonde knucklehead was rehabilitating Sai on getting his feelings back, trying to ignore his comments about his penis size. This was Naruto. He was helping his friend Sai out about emotions whilst at the same time learning about feelings himself, especially love, in secret. He didn't want others to see that he had problems with recognizing what he was feeling. But more importantly, he yelled at Sai. "Shut up, Sai. My equipment isn't lagging. It is decent and in working order, Tabeo." A 15-year-old Naruto yelled. Sai just smiled more, ticking him off. Naruto was sure he wasn't small. When he and Sasuke's hands were stuck together, then were forced to pee together, unknowingly sizing each other up. That was the first time Sasuke ever admitted defeat in his exact words, "TCH. You beat me this time." So, if having a 12-inch package was small, then what did that make Sasuke? Meanwhile, a few outsiders, mainly girls, giggled at him. With Boruto finally made it towards the village gates, with chakra replenished, and the ache in his right eye was gone, allowing him to open it. Boruto mused, "Ah, nothing beats 3D. Datbasa." Whilst he passed the gates, he missed the shocked looks of Kotetsu and Izumo, who were too petrified to even check his ID. Boruto simply walked in the village gates, taking note of the different village structure, remembering his parents' stories of how Konoha had to be rebuilt after his dad became a hero. Kotetsu stammered out, "Oi, did you just see that guy?" Izumo replied, "Yeah, I could have sworn that he looks just like Naruto, but way too tall." They both nodded and sent a messenger bird to the Hokage about this man. As Boruto wandered the streets, he saw the people giving him weird looks, not ones of hatred, but rather mystified looks due to his appearance. He rationalized it as most likely due to his clothing being a little bit too high-end compared to this time period. Speaking of which, he definitely knew he was in the past now, as he only saw 5 of the Hokage faces on the mountain, and what supported this argument even more. No Wi-Fi. He tried calling his parents, but there was no signal. Boruto sighed. He had to find a way back home soon before he changed anything. He didn't feel like meeting the current Hokage at the moment. He never felt too comfortable around his great-grandmother figure, Tsunade Senju. But what choice did he have? He thought about trying to find his dad's younger self for help, but thought against it, as his dad and his uncle Sasuke had told him stories of how Naruto back then wasn't nearly as wise as he is as Hokage. It wasn't that Naruto wasn't smart, he was just handicapped to the point that he barely had an education which he received after the war. As Boruto was about to head towards the Hokage Tower, he instead was stopped by a Hyuga man. "Naruto," this man said, baffled. Boruto looked down at him and saw someone he vaguely recalled in his memories. He decided to find out who this Hyuga was. Boruto answered, "No, but excuse me, who might you be?" he asked. The man apologized humbly before answering. "Forgive my rudeness, I'm Neji Hyuga," he replied whilst bowing, which Boruto quickly told him not to do that with him. Boruto was shocked. "Uncle, Neji," he thought. He always wanted to meet his late uncle, since his parents always described him as being very caring and strong, even if he was a bit uptight, which he could easily see. Boruto gave his name quickly, as polite it was to do. "My name's Boruto, pleased to make your acquaintance, Mr. Neji," he told him. Neji nodded but asked him, "And your last name?" Boruto told him he would prefer to keep it to himself and needed to get going, which Neji allowed, but not without a suspicious glare at Boruto's back. He bears an uncanny resemblance to Naruto, there must be a connection between them, Neji theorized. As Boruto managed to walk a few meters in front of Neji, two Anbu appeared in front of him. The purple-haired Anbu told him, "Excuse me, but Lady Hokage has requested your presence in her office." The other Anbu followed, declining this order, "Then we'll force you in." Boruto was unaffected by their threats and conceded. He needed to see Tsunade anyway. Hokage's office. Tsunade, the fifth Hokage, had just got a report from Kotetsu and Izumo about a man who looks almost like Naruto, just much taller. She immediately ordered her Anbu to find this man to bring him in for questioning. If this was an imposter, then she'd destroy the one pretending to be her little brother figure. If it happened to be a relative of Naruto's, then she'd demand why he wasn't there for Naruto during his childhood. As she was thinking about this, three figures appeared in front of her, two of her Anbu who were immediately dismissed, leaving only the blonde dressed in black behind. Tsunade looked at him and saw that he really did look like Naruto, only with neater hair, fluffy instead of spiky, one almost pupil-less baby blue eye with other being the same shade as Naruto's and black and red clothes. Honestly, she thought Naruto should start wearing black since it'd look good on him. But back to the case, she began to ask him questions in an intimidating voice. Tsunade asked, "All right, who are you? And state your business here." Boruto told her, "Before I do that, can you activate the silencing seals?" Tsunade raised her eyebrows but did as he wished. Tsunade asked, "That all right?" Boruto nodded, "Yes, I know this will be hard to believe, but, my name is Boruto Uzumaki." A few moments of silence go by. Then Tsunade yells, "What?" in disbelief. Boruto raises an arm to stop her and tells her, "Yes. I'm related to Naruto Uzumaki, but not the way you think." Tsunade calms down and asks, "Okay, tell me how you are related to him before I beat you into the ground." Boruto sighs, "I'm his son in the far future." Tsunade faints. Boruto sighs again, "This is going to take a while." When Tsunade, the current Hokage of this time's Konoha village, fell unconscious face first in her desk, Boruto found himself panicking as he really needed to speak to her as she was the only person he could really ask for help. "Oh come on. Why? Well, I should have expected that since she is an old lady. Old people have serious heart issues after all." Boruto spoke to himself as he remembered his grandpa and other elderly he used to often meet with at the Hyuga estate in the far future hence he came. Thinking this, an idea came to mind to check out the Hyuga clan compound later and possibly meet his mother and auntie. A heavy sigh escaped his mouth. His mother by now would be so worried about him to the point even she'd mouth off at his father, he shivered. His mother was damn scary when she was upset or mad, or both. However, he shook his head of those thoughts and looked straight at the unconscious Hokage. Now was not the time to thinking about how worried everyone back home would be about him. He needed to focus on returning home just before anyone would realize he was gone. Intentions and goals temporarily made, he approached Tsunade and shook her shoulders. "Hey, great-grandmother, wake up Tabasa." A huge tick mark appeared on her forehead and Tsunade suddenly stiffened. Boruto caught this slight change in her posture and prepared for the worst. Tsunade arose from her short slumber and broke the desk along with cracking the wooden floor below in her rage to destroy the one who awoke her. "Who the heck are you calling great-grandmother? Punk." Tsunade wailed her fist which barely missed his face. Boruto stepped back with a screech, "Yeet." As soon as that was over, Boruto's gaze met Tsunade's, who immediately recalled what this man just told her. She stood up abruptly and quickly pointed her finger. "You. All right. You better explain to me right now what's going on." Tsunade demanded of him with her voice promising doom. Boruto swallowed a ball of slick nervousness down his throat and recalled coolly to her. "As I said, I'm Boruto Uzumaki, but he was cut off." "I know that, but just tell again, how are you Naruto's son?" Tsunade asked, hoping he'd give her an answer to rid her of the huge headache that even she doubted sake would help relieve. Boruto raised both hands into a gesture telling her to stop interrupting. "I get it, it's unbelievable, but please let me explain and this will make sense Dadbasa." Boruto requested with urgency in his voice. Tsunade, however, was taken aback by his verbal tick, which erased some of her doubts, a tad bit. Okay then, I'm listening, Boruto. Tsunade leaned forward with her hands under her chin. Boruto took a breath of relief and continued. Okay, you already have my name, but I was going to tell you that Naruto Uzumaki is my father, well, will be my father in the far future. But that isn't important. I somehow ended up back in time, and before I worry anyone back in my time, I need help in getting back home. Tsunade nodded and processed his words for a while. I see, but I still don't believe you. Unless you know something about Naruto that absolutely no one else knows about him yet, then I can't help you. Tsunade was about to dismiss him and send him away until his mother was Kushina Uzumaki and his father is the late 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Boruto said quickly. Tsunade's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. How do you? She wanted to ask. Easy. I'm his son, he told me everything he learned about his family. In fact, everyone knows in the future. Boruto added, hoping she'd finally believe him. This wasn't enough to convince her, however, so she let out some killing intent towards him, or you could be some spy that knows too much. I need more proof, she told him as her eyes narrowed. Boruto scratched his head in thought, what could he do to make her believe him? Then it hit him. He put his right hand forward and began to gather chakra whilst making it swirl in a chaotic manner. Tsunade's eyes were the size of dinner plates. Rah! Boruto finished for her, Rasengan. He left it out there in the open for a few minutes before finally dissipating it. Tsunade coughed into her hand and resumed her Hokage mode. Well, you have me convinced now. No one besides me, Jiraiya, maybe Kakashi and some others who knew his parents know this. Not to mention that the Rasengan isn't easy to copy. Now, what did you need help with? Tsunade asked him. Boruto smiled. Yes, I'm so glad you believe me. Tsubasa. But before he could tell her what he wanted, he heard Tsunade chuckle at him. What's so funny? Boruto questioned her. Tsunade did her best to stop her laughter. I'm sorry, it's just not only do you look like Naruto, you even speak like him. It's just, oh, my god. Anyway, continue. Tsunade told him. Boruto cleared his throat. Ahem. As I was telling you, I need some help in getting back to my time if it's possible. You have anything that sends people back to their timeline? He asked anxious. Tsunade nodded, giving Boruto a glimmer of hope until, we do, but that jutsu only sends you even further back in time, not forward. Not to mention, that stuff is nothing to play around with. Boruto sighed. Oh man, I guess I'm stuck here, Tsubasa. Tsunade then spoke up again. We may not be able to help you get back to your time, but maybe we can help you settle in. She offered. Boruto blinked. Settle in? As in live here? He asked. Tsunade nodded. Yes, as long as you need until you get back to your timeline. I'll have Shizune help you out with that. Tsunade turned the seals off before calling for her assistant. Shizune. The aforementioned assistant came. Yes, Lady Tsunade. And, Naruto, how did you get so tall so quickly? Shizune noticed Boruto standing next to her. Boruto smiled whilst Tsunade cracked up. Shizune then asked, what's so funny, Lady Tsunade? Aren't you curious as well? Tsunade slowly simmered down her laughter at her clueless assistant. Oh boy, Shizune, you're going to be in for a big surprise when he tell you who he is. Shizune tilted her head in confusion, which Boruto took as his sign to tell her who he is. Nice to meet you, Shizune. I'm Boruto Uzumaki, and wait. He stopped her from reacting to his last name with hands frantically raised. He continued his speech when he was certain Shizune wasn't going to interrupt. Moving on, I'm an Uzumaki because my father is Naruto, but that's way ahead into the future, like almost 3 or 4 years in the future, Tsubasa. Boruto told her. Shizune's mouth was agape whilst Tsunade rubbed her forehead. LL Lady Tsunade. You don't believe what you're hearing, do you? Shizune questioned what she just heard and her master's thoughts. Tsunade grunted an affirmation to her assistant. I do in fact believe him, I can hear it in just how he speaks. Not to mention his clothes makes him stick out like a sore thumb. Tsunade noted. Shizune was baffled by how her master had believed this man, being her assistant and all she took charge. Lady Tsunade, but we have to take proper measures, I suggest maybe a blood test done in private. Shizune suggested. Boruto blanched, he never quite got over his distaste for hospitals ever since he was given his first injection. And he knew what a blood test involved. Tsunade agreed, way ahead of you Shizune, as much as I believe you Boruto, I still need to see some actual proof, you understand that much, right? Boruto replied, yeah, I do. He expressed forlornly as he knew couldn't avoid the needle. Tsunade's eyes glinted. Now then, if you are the brat's son, then he got married right? Boruto answered, yeah, obviously, why'd you ask, Datbasa? Well then, who is your mother? She asked, which made Shizune calm down in her worry about Boruto and light up in curiosity and excitement for who Naruto married. Boruto smirked. It's been a while since he played any jokes on people, so he might as well start now. How about you two try guessing, Tsubasa? He insisted. Shizune took the first guess. Was it Sakura Haruno? Boruto shook his head. Nope. Shizune piped down and thought again whilst Tsunade took her guess. Ino Yamanaka. Boruto took a step back. How did you know? What makes you think that Aunt Ino's my mom? Because your right eye is similar to hers in hue. So it isn't Sakura or Ino, can you give us a hint? She asked. Boruto smirked. With pleasure. Whilst he prepared to do the hand signs that everyone should recognize. Horse, tiger, boar, rabbit, rat, dog, boar, rabbit, rat, dog, ram. Tsunade's eyes immediately widened as Boruto performed those hand signs. It couldn't be, so you're half Hyuga? Tsunade asked. Boruto opened his right eye revealing a glowing blue flame-colored iris with matte black whites. Yeah, now do you know who my mother is? He asked with a cheeky smile. Tsunade had a good feeling about who it was, but wanted to remain stoic. However, Shizune spoiled her plans to be subtle. Oh my god, it's Hinata Hyuga, isn't it? Please say it was her, that'd be so nice to hear. Shizune cheered. Boruto took a step back from the normally mild-tempered woman and nodded. Yes, Hinata Uzu, I mean Hyuga, is my mom. Gosh, it feels so weird calling my mom by her old last name. Tsunade let out a big smile. Hinata. That girl actually sank her claws into him. Oh, you have to tell me how she got your father's attention. So, do you know how your mother got with your father? Hoping for some entertainment, which she indeed got. Boruto scratched his head. Well, it's pretty confusing, but it turns out my dad had always had a thing or two for my mother since they were kids, around 5 years old before they enrolled in the academy if I remember correctly. Shizune's eyes sparkled and Tsunade's face took on a dreamy look. Oh. A childhood sweetheart story. I love those, please tell us. Shizune edged him on. Tsunade would usually yell at Shizune to make her calm down, but she wanted to hear this story as well. Boruto smiled. With pleasure. Anyway, they both told me it all began when my dad saved mom from a group of bullies and got beat up in the end. Tsunade burst out in laughter. Naruto white knighted Hinata. Now I have something to embarrass him about. Ha ha ha. Boruto laughed along with Tsunade. He was getting more comfortable with this Tsunade since she wasn't nearly this casual in the future, the death hugs she gave him when he was little. Yeah, please do. I'd like to see that happen. Anyway, many years go by, they went out together as friends. Mind you, then after a war, some guy from outer space comes for Mum's hand in marriage. Tsunade stopped him there. Wait. Another man, who is from out of space, wanted Hinata's hand in marriage. Boruto nodded and Shizune said, my god. Talk about scale. Your mother didn't accept his proposal, did she? Boruto continued, well, unfortunately, My mother had too. Why? My auntie Hanabi was kidnapped by this guy and she had no choice but to. And my dad had been torn apart when she did this because he happened to confess to her that moment. Both Shizune and Tsunade's mouths were unhinged. Naruto confessed. Not the other way around. Boruto shrugged. Well, my mum did first, but my dad thought it was more of a friendly thing. But back to the main story. Aunt Sakura and Dad's friends talked some sense into him and then he fought some sense into the other guy to win back my mum. Then for some reason, my dad decided to save the other guy because he saw himself in him. After all that, Mum and Dad got married and lived happily ever after. Boruto ended lamely. Tsunade and Shizune, however, were gushing over these details. You have to tell us the whole story in better detail later, but oh my god, I can't believe that brat and the Hyuga heiress got hitched. Tsunade cried in laughter. Then the two began chatting about ways to tease Naruto and Hinata, completely forgetting about their time-traveled son. Hey, I'm still here. I need help, remember? Boruto shouted to draw their attention. Shizune straightened up and Tsunade returned to her Hokage mode. Alright, sorry about that. Now, as we said before, we can't help you get back to your timeline. However, we can help you find a place to stay, have someone give you a tour around the village and anything else you may need along the way. Tsunade informed him. Boruto nodded his head in agreement with what she put in place, until she said, we'll also might need to make a cover story for you, maybe pretend you're Naruto's long-lost brother. Boruto raised his hand in an open palm position. Nope. I do not want to do that. Datbasa. Tsunade and Shizune were taken aback. May I ask why, Boruto? Boruto explained. Look, I understand your concerns about my presence, but I do not want to lie to other people about myself ever again. Especially to my old man. Ever since, he looked down with shame brimming forth from his eyes as he recalled his shameful days using the scientific ninja tool. Tsunade caught this and decided not to stress this matter. Very well, you don't have to lie to others about who you are then, but try to understand that you just being here will stir up trouble not just for you, but for others. I'm not sure what kind of time you lived in, but in our world, people will do many disgusting things to you just to know about the future. Boruto squinted his eyes in thought until he eventually gave in. After all, he had seen many dangerous things beyond his genin days and his journey with his master Sasuke. I understand, ma'am. Now about that place to stay, Tsubasa, he reminded both Tsunade and Shizune. The latter quickly straightened up. Oh right. Your residential details need to be done and she stammered. Tsunade however waved her off. Just quickly fill in his details for him and make another key cut to the brat's apartment. I'll show Boruto around the village. Shizune immediately saw what she was trying to do. Oh no, you don't, master. You just want to avoid having to do any work. Shizune accused. Tsunade grew angry at her assistant and yelled, get out of here before I make you. Causing the poor girl to flee in terror. Boruto felt a bit uneasy at having witnessed his great-grandmother figure yell like that. This time is so different to the one I live in, Datbasa, he thought to himself. He jumped a little when he saw Tsunade turned quickly to face him with a bright smile on her face before she told him, now. Follow me, brat. This irked him a little, but he didn't voice his thoughts. If the stories about Tsunade were true, then he didn't want to piss her off. Main Street, Konoha, Market District. 15, or around 20 minutes later, Tsunade had led Boruto to what seemed like the shopping strip of this time's Konoha. He saw that despite the lackluster size of these shops, they still populated most of the street's space on every side and corner. However, he noticed one of the restaurants he had been well acquainted with since his childhood. Whoa, Amaguriyama Sweets. It's still here, Tsubasa. He exclaimed in shock. Catching this, Tsunade laughed. Well, of course it is. It's been open since the end of the Third War. Why are you so shocked? Boruto looked back at her and simmered down. Well, I know it's been open for a long time, but I didn't think it was so old. He spoke in awe at the sweets store. Seeing Boruto's gazing at the store, Tsunade decided to take it easy on the poor kid, especially since seeing the village in the past might have been a major culture shock to him. Well then, let's get ourselves some treats, why don't we? Tsunade insisted, causing Boruto to panic a bit. Ah, but aren't you meant to be showing me around? This is showing you around. Now hurry up, brat. She cut him off. Boruto huffed before he followed her into Amaguriyama Suites. Bang! His head bumped into the top hinge of the door. Ouch! Why are these damn doors so short, Tsubasa? He cursed. Inside of Amaguriyama. Once inside, Boruto took a look around the establishment, drinking in his surroundings. Despite the difference in infrastructure, the layout of the store was more or less the same as the one in the future, traditional, warm and cozy. Just like I remember it being, Tsubasa, he relaxed himself. However, Tsunade gave Boruto a slap on his left shoulder. What are you standing around for? Go and pick out what you like. She edged him on. Oh, right. Excuse me, miss. Boruto stumbled forward towards the counter where a waitress was waiting. The girl came to the counter before she looked up really high just to look at Boruto's face. She had many tall customers, but never of this structure. Yes, sir. What would you like to have today? She asked as she normally would with anyone else. Boruto gave her a cheerful grin. I'd like to get the salted caramel glazed dango, Tsubasa. Instead of the usual, okay. He was used to hearing, he was given a, I beg your pardon. From the waitress. Boruto blinked a little. I said salted caramel glazed dango. Dat, Basa, he said slowly, hoping she understood. The waitress just gave him a weird look before breaking the news to him. I'm terribly sorry, sir, but we don't have anything like that here. Boruto's forehead began to sweat. Wait, you mean, okay. How about peanut butter and raspberry jam donuts? He said next. But the waitress shook her head. We don't have that either. Besides, what's peanut butter? Boruto's complexion began to lighten up quickly as his dread did also. No, it couldn't be, Datbasa. So you guys don't even have vanilla cream and syrup? He said. Unfortunately, she shook her head again. Nope. Whatever you're asking for, we don't have it. That was it for Boruto. He dropped to his knees and fake tears began to run down his face. No way. My favorite desserts don't exist yet, Tsubasa. He silently cried. Seeing Boruto become all depressed, Tsunade gave him a look of pity before stepping up to the counter. Hey missy. We'll have 3 sets of today's special. She slammed down a fat load of Ryo on the counter. The waitress stumbled back. Huh. Yes, but this is too much, Lady Hokage. Tsunade grinned. That's because I want you to get some sake while you are at it. Now go and get me that good stuff. The waitress quickly bowed and complied. She knew of Tsunade's wrath and didn't want to mention that they don't sell sake here. Why yes. Right away, ma'am. The poor girl took off, leaving behind a satisfied Tsunade with a grin across her face. Beside her was Boruto, who was still weeping from the fact that Amaguriyama didn't serve his favorite sweet treats. You. Get off the floor. We need to find some good seats. She told him. Boruto, however, didn't respond, only quietly lamenting over what he had just uncovered. This lack of response ticked a nerve within the 5th Hokage, enough so that she slammed her foot into his ribs to get his attention. Urg. Ow. Why did you do that? Tsubasa. He rolled back and forth and eventually found his feet whilst clutching his definitely fractured ribs. Tsunade mouthed off at him. You weren't paying any attention to what I was saying. Besides, I ordered for us already. Now follow me. She pivoted on her toes and stomped towards an empty table next to the restaurant's window. Then she took her seat and Boruto found himself sitting across from her. Tsunade decided to pass the time with some small talk. So what was all that stuff you were talking about when you tried ordering? Caramel. Vanilla. It spiked her curiosity as these weren't names she had heard of for food. Boruto sighed and replied, those are just flavors for some the dango, pastries and other stuff they sell here. He looked around the establishment once more and noted that this place only did dango, teas and a few baked goods. Or at least that's what they have in my time. Tsunade nodded and slapped her hand on one of his shoulders, which hurt a lot more than he remembered his great-grandmother figure doing. Well, I'm not sure what those taste like, but I'm sure what we have now is just as good. She made her chance to cheer him up, and despite her rotten luck, it succeeded. Luck level has increased by 2. Boruto smiled. Yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe trying some of these other stuff might be a nice change for once. Especially compared to eating with Master. He grew pale as he remembered his breaks during his training trip. Master. So you have a personal tutor? Who was it? She asked. Boruto gave her a bright smile. My master was none other than Sasuke Uchiha. Datbasa. He proudly proclaimed. At this, Tsunade froze. Apparently no one else heard what he said, most likely due to them stuffing their faces. She recovered from her shock and slammed her hands on the table, almost breaking it and scaring Boruto. What? She couldn't believe her ears. Boruto shuffled uncomfortably in his seat. What's wrong? I didn't say anything bad, did I? Tsunade went off on him. What's wrong? You're telling me you were trained by the Sasuke Uchiha, the deserter. Hearing all this, Boruto quickly understood what she was getting at and immediately began trying to tell her that it was a misunderstanding. Wait. Why you got it all wrong, Uncle Sasuke isn't. Uncle. What else do you have to s? But whatever Tsunade was going to say was cut off by their timely order placed before them. Here you go. Today's special set and a specially ordered bottle of sake. Please enjoy. The waitress left them alone. Thankfully, at least for Boruto, this managed to remind Tsunade that she was in a restaurant. She simmered down, coughed into her hand and looked dead into Boruto's eyes. Now tell me again. Sasuke is both your master and uncle. Her words left with obvious strain permeating throughout each syllable. He nodded and quickly told her, yes, and in the future, he returns to the village and made up for his mistakes. You can thank my dad for doing that. Hearing this, Tsunade's eyes widen. Sasuke returns. Naruto did that, so the brat actually did it. Ha ha ha, I can't believe it. She began to laugh her lungs out. Frowning a bit at her, Boruto didn't take too kindly to people laughing at his parents. What's so funny? She calmed down on her laughter and told him, oh, nothing, it's just, Naruto is going to achieve great things in the future. I'm just happy that he's becoming what he wants. That reminds me. She leaned forward. Did the your father, become Hokage? The answer she got was a big grin upon Boruto's face, which reminded her so much of Naruto and in turn, her younger brother, Naoki. He did. And because of my dad, all the 5 shinobi nations live in absolute peace. And he still works to unite other people and smaller countries to Basa. He spoke with much pride of his father's achievements. Hearing this, Tsunade was almost brought to tears. I see, looks like he did it. After a few minutes of letting this sink in, she rose up with her drinking energy and exclaimed, now let's dig in. Eat up, Boruto, she told him. Boruto grinned, yeah, let's Tabasa. He grabbed one of the dango sticks, brought it to his mouth and consumed one whole. He chewed with vigor, but his onslaught upon the treat slowed to a snail's pace. These are it's sweet but starchy, Datbasa. He described the red bean jam-filled delight. In short, it wasn't his cup of tea. He looked up at his great-grandmother figure whom downed cup after cup of sake, indulging herself without a care in the world. Seeing Tsunade enjoy these, in his honest opinion, bland food, the substance began to taste just a little bit better. He guessed that eating with someone is the best seasoning for any meal. Huff a meal with other people, Tabasa. He thought back to his friends and family from the Uzumaki feast, last night. He reached into one of his jacket's front pockets and brought out his smartphone, but when he tried to turn it on, the screen showed him a battery icon with a red fill below 5%. Oh, I'm already out of battery. He said aloud, gaining a semi-drunk Tsunade's attention. What the hell is that? Ain't you a lil, old for toys? Hick. She teased in a drunken slur. Boruto looked up and waved his left hand in dismissal. No. No. It's my phone. It just ran out of power, Tsubasa. Tsunade gave him a weird, yet expectant look. Phone. Looks a little flaky to be a phone. She thought back to the numerous telephones and on a few occasions in her past, bulky cell phones that some countries beyond the 5 nations used, especially that one model that didn't seem to break no matter how hard she smashed it. He laughed at her reaction. It was fun to see old people's reactions to these new, but basic devices. In the future, many people from all over worked together on making technology better. Phones were the most important, and I don't know the details, but from what my friend told me, they created some new circuit boards using seals and microprocessors. Basically, this phone here is a really powerful computer. He tried his best to explain. Despite her somewhat tipsy state, she caught his words and seemed to get the gist of it. I see, those little gadgets must have got a long way in the future. Too bad it's out power, now you can't use it. Boruto smirked. Oh, don't worry. This particular model is special, it's custom made for me. With one of many functions made for these occasions, Datbasa. He showed off his custom phone. He didn't do anything dramatic, or even a big movement, he simply moved his thumb towards the top part of the phone, around where the camera was. To the right, 2 letters could be found carved in. These letters were BU, Boruto's initials. He pressed his thumb into where his initials were carved and his phone began to vibrate lightly, then the little LED linings bordering the edges of the phone lit up a myriad of colors. Blue, purple, green, red and yellow were the most common of these cyclings of light flashes. And before they knew it, Boruto's phone's screen opened to a white, blue and orange screen with a logo that said, Kaminarimon trademark. Then it flashed to a lock screen that told them the time and date with a background photo of himself, Sarada Uchiha and Mitsuki posing for the camera just before he left on his training journey. Tsunade looked unimpressed and continued watching. Boruto grinned at his phone. He chuckled. Thank you, Denki, for making me a chakra-absorbing phone. So I'll never have to worry about battery life, Tsubasa. He praised his best friend like some sort of deity. But Tsunade brought him back to reality. So you charged your phone, that's it. Who are you even going to call? Boruto waved the question away. Nah, I wouldn't be able to call anyone. Different time, no signal. I just want to look at some photos and videos I took last night. Boy, it was crazy, Tsubasa. He flicked through his phone until he found his albums app. Tsunade's eyes widened. Her drunken state had worn off. You have photos, as in from the future. Boruto nodded. Yeah, what? You want to see them? He wondered why his photos from the future seemed so important. Of course. I want to see how well the brat's been doing if he's the Hokage. Tsunade sat herself besides Boruto. He didn't mind, he was more than happy to show her. Here's me and 2 of my friends, Iwabe, the tall guy with the red beanie, and that's Denki, the one with glasses and the fancy suit. He told her. The photo was of Boruto, Iwabe who had him in a playful headlock almost making the former spill his cup of soft drink, and Denki with a smile on his face, holding the camera with his other hand, presenting the scene happening in the photo. Hey, you seem to have quite some friends there. Anyone else? Tsunade became curious. Yeah, this one here was Shikadai and Inojin in a private room playing co-op on that new Beast Hunter game. I still need to try it, Tsubasa, he pouted. This photo made Tsunade laugh. Not only did these 2 look constipated from concentration, but it was the fact that these 2's appearance made her immediately know who their parents were. Oh god, Shikamaru actually had it in him to produce a child. And if I'm not mistaken, is this Inojin's mother Ino and his father Sai? She had to know. Boruto nodded, causing her to laugh out loud. Oh my god. This is too good. Next. She awaited the other photo. And this one here is Chow Chow and her dad in the middle of passing out from a food coma. He described the image of those 2 falling from the food table in defeat, the puke from their mouths kinda resembled a ghost. But the funniest thing about this photo was the fact that those two were falling back, at the same time, in the same pose, reaching for heaven. Tsunade burst out laughing again. Choji and this Chow Chow are definitely related. Buahaha. Making Boruto chuckle as well. And to think she didn't believe that her dad was her dad. Boruto commented, adding to the humor. Before they died of laughter, he had to swipe to the next photo. This one caused Boruto to blush, with Tsunade grinning lecherously. Ooh, who's that girl, Boruto? She pinched his cheek roughly. Oh ow. Stop. That hurts, Tsubasa. He pushed her hand away, revealing the red mark on his right cheek. That's Sumire KK. She was the class rep back when we were both in the academy. She, went through an identity crisis at one point since her mother died so long ago she can't even remember her voice. Boruto recapped those days. Tsunade closed her eyes. Poor thing, and what's your relationship with her? Hoping to spark some saucy details. Boruto smiled. She's a really good friend of mine. I helped her to see that she was an amazing person who brought the best out of others. And I'm happy to see that she's much more outgoing than before. He described her. Looking at the photo, it seemed innocent. Boruto held the camera forward and took the photo with Sumire, wearing her purple blouse, almost black trackies and a light pinkish and magenta cardigan over her top, somewhat behind him and looking over his arm. But what he wouldn't dare tell anyone was that her growth spurt was pressed into his back at the time. The moment made him flush, and just before he could think any more dirty thoughts, he moved on to the next photo. And this one is Sarada Uchiha. My uncle's daughter. She's a really snarky and sassy girl compared to Sumire. He playfully described her character. Tsunade's eyes were definitely awake now. Sasuke has a daughter. My, it seems like he really does come back to us. Sarada EY. She does resemble her father in some ways, but her frown reminds me of my student. Tsunade pointed out. Boruto nodded. Oh, right. I forgot Aunt Sakura was your student back then. Yeah, Sarada's mom is Aunt Sakura, and just like her mom, Sarada punches really hard. He shivered as he remembered the last time she kicked his balls. Tsunade laughed heartily at those words. I can't believe how well the future has gone. Sakura finally made that man settle. Yes, it's a good time. As her eyes wandered over the image of Boruto taking a sneaky selfie of both himself and Sarada, who was busy pushing his face and trying to take his phone off his hands. And that's all my friends who were there that night. The other two, Mitsuki and Metal, were off somewhere else doing whatever, Tsubasa. He added. Tsunade nodded. I see. Now what about your family? You haven't shown me any photos of Naruto, or Hinata. Oh right. I was getting to them. He tapped another file which contained photos of his family. Here's my dad singing. He showed a photo of his father without his Hokage cape, singing his lungs out on stage, making the little toddlers, mainly the Hyuga children, cheering around the makeshift stage. Tsunade chuckled at this photo. Ha 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 ha. I can't believe I'm saying this, but he actually looks like a grown-up. Especially his hair. He's pretty well groomed. Did do that himself. He should wear his hair like that more often. He looks neat for once. Boruto smiled, keeping his giggles in. Yeah, I've seen photos of his younger self. I'm glad mom told him to cut his hair. He looked like a slob back then, Tsubasa. Tsunade slapped Boruto on his back 3 times, almost breaking it. You got that right. Buahahaha. She laughed. Boruto had to shift away from her for a while. Hey. My back. Anyway, here's my mom. What Tsunade was faced with was a picture of Hinata stacking at least 46 plates of food around her table. Tsunade's eyes bulged out at this sight. Damn girl. Where does she put it? That's what I'm trying to figure out, even to this day. And finally, my younger sister. Boruto concluded. Tsunade was taken aback. Wait. You have a sister? Boruto then finally showed a picture of his younger sister posing for the camera. She was giving him a double hand wave and had her knees slightly bent inwards. She had her hair pulled back into a ponytail that reached just below her neck, with two sunflower hair clips keeping her bangs in place along the side of her head. She was wearing a white short-sleeved dress shirt under a black corset with brass-colored buttons. Over that was a bright yellow cardigan, with long loose sleeves and tied around her waist with the sewed-on sash. Her bottoms were a pair of white 3/4, black knee socks underneath and a pair of white shinobi boots with yellow soles. She put on the biggest smile Tsunade had ever seen and her eyes sparkled with much joy. Oh my goodness, she is precious. She looks so much like Hinata, but she has Naruto's eyes and skin tone. I can't believe that Naruto could ever produce anyone that adorable. She jested. I know. She's the family's little princess. Nothing will ever hurt her, Tsubasa. He made that point very clear. This made Tsunade smile at Naruto's future child. I see you really care about your sister. What a good older brother you are. Ha ha ha. She started pinching his cheeks. But this wasn't funny for him. His cheeks were on fire and he needed to get away. Stop, Tsubasa. Boruto begged her for mercy and fortunately, he got away but with a sore cheek. Ow, can you please stop doing? You're stronger than you think, Tsubasa. He really wanted her to quit doing that. She laughed with mirth causing Boruto to think she didn't care, but she apologized. Sorry, I was just trying to have fun. Didn't think I was hurting you. So, how was your dango? She stood up, shockingly sober. Boruto rose from his seat and shrugged, it wasn't that bad. Though I do prefer the ones in the future, Tsubasa. He gave his verdict. Tsunade smiled and let her shoulders sag. That's disappointing, but never mind that. We still have to show you your father's apartment. Which is where you'll be staying by the way. She informed him. Boruto thanked her. That's okay. I feel more comfortable knowing I'll be staying at Dad's old place. This brought up another topic of discussion. What about your mother? Hinata? She asked, curious as to why he'd choose Naruto, the loud brat over Hinata, the gentle quiet girl. Boruto laughed half-heartedly and looked around just for good measure before whispering. She's really scary when she's mad. This set her off again. Hinata. Mad. When can that girl ever get angry? She mocked him. Boruto shook his head at his great-grandmother figure. If only she knew just what his mother become in the future. Training Field 13. Bones could be heard cracking and smashing into bones. The only way bones like these didn't break was due to a lifetime of gradually applied stress. This is what gave them their density. Yes, Neji Hyuga as of this moment was being pushed harder than usual against his cousin, Hinata Hyuga. This was attested to the fact that Hinata was in the midst of developing an unorthodox style of fighting, at least for a Hyuga. She was utilizing more punches, kicks and grappling techniques he was inexperienced against fighting. One such move she pulled was a flying knee aimed towards Neji's sternum. This was simple enough. He weaved out of the direct path and used the side angle to lightly vacuum palm Hinata out of the way. Palm. A blast of compressed air sent the girl tumbling. She performed a recovery roll and stood in a hunched position. Her eyes locked onto her cousin before she rushed towards him. Neji bit back his tongue and critiqued her aggression. She's got heart and aggression. A bit too hasty. He thought over as he took 2 half steps back. He did this since Hinata was now in range. She thrusted her arm out like a spear with lightning speed and precision. This made Neji slip under her arm, but Hinata's attack was a feint. She crafted a small illusion via the feint that covered her arm with excess chakra, fooling his eyes. Neji's eyes were now wide open. She had me. Neji panicked as he saw that Hinata was now performing a cartwheel kick, with the top of her shin almost nearing his face. Out of reflex, Neji used his momentum to spin rapidly and form chakra around his body. Rotation. Neji shouted and Hinata was blown away. Ah! Hinata rolled and flopped like a fish before she settled for hold her forearm. Realizing his mistake, Neji stopped. Lady Hinata. Are you alright? He approached his cousin with worry evident in his eyes. Hinata looked at him and nodded, but she had to ask, I'm fine brother Neji, I just twisted my wrist. But I thought you said no rotations. Neji swallowed a gulp of saliva. I apologize, you caught me off guard with that last attack. However, we must see to it that wrist gets attention, he insisted. Hinata nodded and slowly stood up, just when she was about to agree with him. She suddenly sneezed, causing Neji to overreact. Lady Hinata. Are you sick as well? Hinata waved her hand. It's nothing, brother Neji, it just felt like someone said something about me. Neji crossed his arms in thought. Odd. Who would talk about you in the middle of nowhere? Hinata looked down with a sad look on her face. I know, I hope Naruto said something about me. Her white face gained color. Neji sighed. What was so good about that idiot? Residential district. It had been an eventful couple dozen minutes. But Tsunade had finally sobered up enough to lead Boruto to Naruto's apartment block. Looking at it now, Boruto was awed by it due to having at least 3 or 4 floors, not to mention, the apartment complex was the same color scheme as his family's house. Whoa, this is where Dad lives, Tsubasa. He let his eyes lazily relax at the sight of his father's old apartment complex. Tsunade smiled at the youngster and hoped everything was to his liking. You seem amazed. I thought you'd be disappointed with where your father stays. She couldn't help but wonder. Boruto grinned at her. No, I kind of envied my dad for having his own place. I always found it cool how he lived by himself. No offense to Mom Tsubasa, he quickly covered. Tsunade hummed to herself. That was quite unexpected. She thought that maybe times were different in the future. I see. Well, at least you and the brat don't have to be alone. Now let's get you settled in. She led onwards to the stairs. With Boruto closely behind, passing by doors and potted plants on the way, which reminded him of his father spending his downtime watering plants. And the closer they got to the top floor, the more Boruto felt at home. Now they were in front of Naruto's apartment entrance. Pretty soon, this would be where he'll be staying for this journey. But first, great-grandma, he called. When he said that, Tsunade's grip on a potted plant sitting on a stool near the door shattered, making Boruto step back. Tsunade put on a scary smile whilst handing him the keys. Here you go, Boruto. The Brant's apartment keys. Now next time you address me, call me Tsunade, okay? She forced him into a corner. Boruto nodded furiously and made it clear he understood. Yes, I understand, Tsunade, Tsubasa. In a finicky pace, Tsunade seemed pleased and left him to it, with one last line, good, now I'll leave you to it. Once she was gone, Boruto let out a breath of relief he needed to hold back. I thought I was a goner, fat Tsubasa. He tilted his head upwards to face the door. Now was time to acquaint himself with his new place to stay. It's now or never. He inserted his father's key into the door, twisted it, and it was opened. What lay beyond was an open corridor with a somewhat dusty wooden floor, darkened cement walls, and 3 doors closing openings in the wall. Boruto blinked a few times before sighing in defeat. At least it's cleaner than my room when I was a kid, Tsubasa, he reasoned. Walking down into corridor, he pushed open the first door on his right, which revealed the living room kitchen hybrid. By far, it was the cleanest room, barely any dust, but the tabletops were filled to the brim with condiments, cooking appliances, and boxes of food cereals. This made him raise an eyebrow. Wow, Dad actually kept things in order. And I thought Dad ate nothing but ramen, Tsubasa. He pointed out, genuinely surprised. But he'd check it out later. He moved on to the next room and saw it was his father's bedroom, which was not dusty, but clothes were littered in some places and a corner filled with ceiling scrolls. He looked around some more and found a small desk and a massive bed. He's comfortable at least. He then looked at the last door. And this must be the bathroom, he said as he opened the door, and he guessed right. Yep, a big bathroom, Tsubasa. He let his eyes take in the sight of the bathroom, with concrete walls showing its age with cracks, a bathtub with a green curtain to his left, a mirror above a white tap and sink, followed by what seemed to be a towel rack to the far right. Boruto smiled. This place is actually pretty big for one person. Just give it a clean and pack some things away, then this place would look almost empty. Datbasa. He described the place as he made his way back to where the living room was. His old man wouldn't mind letting him have a drink now, would he? Turning towards the refrigerator in the kitchen that was connected to the living room, Boruto noticed a bright note of the appliance which contained a messy message that made him hold back a laugh. Really, Dad? Buy new milk. I guess some things haven't changed, Tsubasa. The future dweller relished the thought as he opened the fridge's door to observe its contents. Inside, he was surprised to see all the necessities that one would need: eggs, bacon, spring onions, butter and expired milk. Boruto shrugged and gave his dad's younger self the benefit of the doubt. He at least reminded himself to get more milk. Looking down, however, his eyes bulged out of his sockets. Whoa, now that's a lot of orange juice, and is that soda? Tsubasa. He didn't bother hiding his shock. He put a big grin on his face whilst he grabbed himself a can of orange soda. And I thought I was bad with my soda drinking. Boruto popped open the can and took a quick sip of the beverage. This satisfied the young man to a great extent, and he sat himself down at the small table in the living room. Now I'll just wait for Dad, he suggested as he slowly enjoyed his orange soda. At least soda hasn't changed. With Naruto. As for where the younger man's dad was at, he currently being picked up by Shizune, who was trying to tell him something important but he wasn't listening. Naruto, we have to head back to your apartment now. But before that, is there something you need to do? She reminded him. However, Naruto squinted his eyes and shrugged his shoulders. Not really, but this is definitely the last time I hang out with Sai. Datbao. I swear, what's with him and D? Shizune's face boiled at what he was about to say. So she forcibly began pulling on Naruto's arm and dragging him towards his apartment. Never mind. We must hurry. We're already behind as it is. She told him as she completely disregarded the fact that Naruto's SS was receiving some major carpet burn. Ow. Ow. Shizune Nichan. That hurts. Datbao. Naruto pleaded for her to stop before his SS was mauled to death, literally. But his plea went unheard since Shizune began grumbling about how Lady Tsunade is probably using this as an excuse to get out of the office. Doesn't she ever realize how important her duties are? With her feet stomping the ground harder, signifying how much she stressed each word. Despite the pain Naruto was enduring, he managed to at least ask, just what's so important that you have to drag me along the ground for? Tabeo. As he found his feet and did a roadie run backwards, pretty much a retarded moonwalk. To relieve his SS of the pain. Whilst he did that, Shizune answered him without losing her steam. Someone came to the village is going to be living with you from now on, completely ignoring Naruto's gobsmacked look. What? Hold on. Don't I get a say in? Oof. His face ended up on the sandy ground when Shizune dropped him off. She hastily told him, here we are Naruto. Now head inside, I have to find Tsunade. Bye bye. She ran off without giving the poor kid a chance to speak. In the distance, Naruto could faintly hear her scream, Lady Tsunade. Frowning at the knowledge he had acquired, he looked up to see he was in front of his apartment building. So someone was living with him. Whoever it was, they better be a good roommate. Damn that old granny, making decisions without asking me, Datbao. They better not be touching my premium stack of genuine pork bone broth ramen. He swore as he now had a reason to rush to his home. No one touches his ramen and gets away with it. With this as his goal, he slammed the unlocked door open, ignoring the fact that it was opened as he was blinded by rage. But he managed to hear a gasp from his living room kitchen area. So they are here already. Tabeo, he thought to himself as he began rounding a corner. He started yelling, you better not have touched my ramen, you. His mouth became slack when his eyes laid upon the backpacker. The aforementioned person of subject coughed into his mouth to clear his throat. He had apparently helped himself to a can of orange soda. Oh, He's got good taste. I mean, wait a minute. He paused his thoughts. He pointed an accusing finger. You. Who the hell are you? And why are you copying me, Dadbao? His eyes took in the taller blonde with neater, fluffy hair in contrast to his own messy spikes. This guy looked almost like he did, except taller, better clothing, 2 less whiskers and 1 pale blue eye with barely any pupils. If this guy was disguising as him, then he needed to do a better job on his Henji. The copycat tried to introduce himself. Hey there, nice to meet you, I'm Boru. But Naruto summoned a clone and immediately began working on a Rasengan. Rasengan. Naruto thrusted it up into the air, telegraphing that he was ready to strike. On the other hand, Boruto was chuckling a bit and felt beads of sweat trickling down the side of his face. I should have expected something this to happen, Dadbasa, he noted. And Naruto heard him say his verbal tick, at least what he thought of as a mockery of his own, which pissed him off more. Stop copying me. He charged Rasengan first towards Boruto at breakneck speed. But for Boruto, he simply took a step back from the small table and towards the window behind himself. His intention, he swiftly slid the window open, then body flickered through it to avoid his father's Rasengan in just the nick of time. With Naruto already being midair with his current momentum, it carried him right through the window and with him panicking. Ah, what the? Naruto was caught off by the copycat's speed and agility. But he didn't take his time admiring it, instead he let his Rasengan dissipate into the air and formed his hand together to create a shadow clone. With a pop akin to that of a party popper coming from his side, Naruto let the clone grab onto him and toss him to safety onto the rooftops before dispelling. The original himself thanked his clone and flipped onto his feet, feeling the familiar comfort of hard ground. He let out a breath of relief before his eyes turned stern. He looked around searching for the other blonde and found him standing atop a water tower on another building before himself. He glared at Boruto and pointed fingers at him. Hey you, what's the big idea? Why are you pretending to be me, Dadbao? He demanded to know. Boruto leapt down and held his right hand up. I'm not pretending to be you, this is just how I happen to look, Tsubasa. He tried to convince his father's younger self. But Naruto didn't buy it and settled into a battle stance. Yeah right. I think you just want to steal my secret ramen stash like the last time someone pretended to be me. Dadbao. He accused. This claim made Boruto's mind stall for a moment. Secret ramen stash, pretender, where did I hear that from? Then it clicked, Boruto snorted at the memory. Oh, that story. I remember when you told me that. I didn't think it actually happened, Tsubasa. Ha ha ha. He giggled at the discovery of knowing that the event did indeed happen. Naruto frowned at him, however. Did this guy really think this was funny? No one threatens his ramen and mocks him. Oh, just shut up you. I'll give you something to laugh at, Dadbao. He made good on that promise by summoning 100 shadow clones, catching Boruto's attention. The future dweller set his feet square for balance. This many opponents meant he needed to keep on his toes. Then it came. Naruto shouted, attack! Causing a wave of 20 clones to swarm Boruto. But Boruto wasn't phased. The first clone who charged him was countered with a lightning-fast jab to the face and popped out of existence. 2 more came, hoping to pile onto Boruto, uses the fact that he was leaning forward from his last attack to their advantage. But Boruto was faster and saw it coming before it even happened. He ducked beneath the clone that was already in the air and swept the ground clone behind it. The air-bound clone looked behind itself and saw the Boruto use the ground clone as a launch pad to fire himself into a flying knee towards itself. Boruto's knee struck. Both clones were destroyed almost simultaneously at the speed Boruto was moving. After this, he landed on his feet and his eyes caught 2 groups of 5 Naruto clones in the air. One on his left and another to his right. The one on the right had 2 of the clones transform into 2 massive demon windmill shuriken. Boruto stepped back to prepare for what he knew was going to happen. This was just like his dad's Rasen shuriken tactics. He smirked at the thought, some things don't change, Tsubasa. But he was knocked out of his musing when the right group of clones tossed the giant shuriken at him. Despite the impossibly fast speed the projectile had, Boruto had experienced much faster and as such showed it off by catching the shuriken. But he didn't use his hands, instead, he pulled out his phone, tapped his thumb on a dedicated touch button and pointed towards the shuriken. The phone absorbed the projectile and Boruto tapped on his phone again and fired it back. Now it was the clones' turn to panic. They were still midair and couldn't maneuver themselves. Instead, they worked together to save one of the clones by letting it jump off of them towards the other group of clones. And Boruto kept his eyes peeled with his weight shifting on his toes. The left group had readied themselves with 2 kunai and each had ready to fire. Once the survivor of the right group of clones had joined the left group's ranks, he ordered them to fire. And the volley of kunai had come. Boruto was stressed to dodge and weave out of the way. If his Jogan wasn't still aching from time traveling, then he would have just warped himself out of the way. But he instead had to do things the normal way and stay out of danger. However, he was so caught up in dodging that the other 70+ clones had surrounded him on all sides. He hadn't noticed until he felt one of them trip him on his feet, making his eyes go eye-wide. This is bad. Dad caught me off guard. Dadbasa. Screw the pain in his eye, he needed to know where all the other clones were. Jogan. His right eye glowed like a incandescent light bulb. His eyes further bulged as he saw that all the clones were about to pummel him. The real Naruto shouted out, "Get ready. From my ninja handbook. Uzumaki." He unveiled his original technique. To hell with that. Boruto had his own version of that technique and hated to be on the receiving end of his father's one. It was decided. Boruto swiftly rubbed his left hand down his right forearm like he was using flint. This caused his right hand to be enveloped with lightning chakra. The real Naruto recognized this and paused in his thoughts. What? That's. Boruto held up his right hand towards the sky and shouted, "Chidori stream." Small strikes of lightning vanquished the many clones and pushed his father away. Arg. Naruto grunted but dealt with the pain. He managed to create another clones to help him create a Rasengan. He saw his chance to use one when Boruto's jutsu ended and he landed roughly on his back. Naruto leapt into the air, his Rasengan arm pulled back and he let out a battle cry. Boruto saw it coming with his Jogan still active, but he couldn't roll out of the way in time. Looks like he'd have to use his phone again. And just when he was about to use his phone to push back Naruto, an intruder's hand had grasped Naruto's right arm and tossed him towards the water tower nearby. Wah! Ouch! Naruto managed to dispel the Rasengan, but his head paid the price as he collided with the tower. The intruder stood between the two blonde Uzumaki and sighed in exasperation. Seems like I came here in just the nick of time. I honestly had a hunch you'd react like this. Kakashi placed a hand on his forehead and expressed his gut feeling. Hearing his voice, all signs of Boruto's fatigue left him as he shot up on his feet. He stared at the silver-haired figure with brightly lit eyes. "Uncle Kakashi, it's you," he called out to him. Kakashi gave him his usual eye smile and replied, "Uncle Kakashi. Is that what you call me in the future? I swear, you're making me feel old." Boruto was it. He scratched his head whilst trying to remember his name. Boruto took a step back. "Oh, sorry. Wait, how do you?" He wanted to ask but Kakashi answered it ahead of time, "How do I know? Lady Hokage, Tsunade had informed me of this little situation not too long ago. And Shizune made it very clear to me that I should keep an eye out for you and Naruto here." He turned his attention to the shorter of the blondes who was busy getting back up on his feet. "Ow, my head, why'd you get in the way, Kakashi-sensei? This guy's copying me and he's not even doing it right, Dadbao." He shouted at his teacher. Kakashi had one finger plugging his ear and told him, "Naruto. This boy here isn't copying you or poses you any threat in any way. This boy a family of yours. This made Naruto stop in his tracks. Family. What family? Even he knew he didn't have any living relatives. Family. No, that can't be. Old man Hokage told me himself that I don't have any. He tried to remind Kakashi, but the latter cut him off. You don't have family now, but in the future you will, but I guess Boruto here will tell you that. Kakashi stepped aside and let him have his say. Boruto nodded a thank you before he approached his now skeptical and hopeful younger father of his. Boruto took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. He left out all the nervousness and was prepared to reveal who he was to him. My name's Boruto Uzumaki, and he was cut off however, brother. Cousin. Naruto tried to end with any logic he had known. Boruto shook his head. Let me finish. I know this is going to be hard to believe, but I'm from the future. About 20 years from now I think, Tsubasa. Naruto stumbled back. Future. What does the mean? Then his mind slowly dawned upon the, to him, unlikely answer. Naruto looked at Boruto with his eyes slowly welling up with tears. If you're not my brother, or cousin, and you're from the future, then are you my, he couldn't say it. For him, it seemed so unlikely to happen. Boruto grinned at him, I'm your son. He revealed the truth to him. That did it for him. Naruto leapt onto Boruto and hugged the living hell out of him. As if all the hostilities went away, Naruto wept out of joy for the fact that he had a son in the future. I can't believe it, sniff, I have a son, Dadbao. He exclaimed. This took Boruto off guard. The last thing he expected was a hug from his younger and shorter father. But nevertheless, he returned it as his father's body exuded the same warmth and comfort as his father in the future did. And I can't believe I get to meet my dad's younger self, Dadbasa. He replied with as much enthusiasm. The two blondes let go of each other. Naruto was now smiling brightly at his future son. Hey, so you're from the future. Can you tell me something? Do I become Hokage? Did I bring Sasuke back? And he rapidly went through many questions and would have continued if Kakashi didn't stop him. Naruto. The questions can wait. Why not save it for some father-son time back in your apartment? He suggested. Naruto's face at first brightened up at the idea, but then turned pale as he suddenly realized. My apartment. Oh no, I forgot to clean it and you didn't find anything weird, did you, Boruto? Naruto looked at his future son with pleading eyes. Boruto chuckled and shook his head. No, I did not. I didn't want to touch any of your stuff in your room, so I only cleaned the living room and the bathroom, Tsubasa. Naruto gulped and sheepishly thanked him. Oh Thanks, Boruto, son. It's fine if I call you that, right? Boruto nodded. Either is fine, so can we head inside? He asked. Naruto nodded and eagerly ushered him in. Yeah, that's fine. I have a lot I want to talk about with you. Let's go to Bao. He cheered onwards towards his apartment. Inside Naruto's apartment, Naruto and Boruto had found themselves chatting away in the living room, kitchen area about anything and everything. Though most of the topics were centered around what happens in the future, what kind of things does Boruto's time have in new jutsu? Eventually, Naruto's random questions came to a stop and it came to his mind that dinner time was around the corner. Oh, that's right. Dinner time. And I finally have someone to eat with at my place. Naruto shot up and looked around the kitchen. Boruto laughed and felt his sweat bead down. Hey dad, you don't have to so much, I can help too, Tsubasa. He offered. Naruto waved him off. Nah. I got this, and because you're my son from the future. I'm letting you have some of my secret stash of premium, thick pork broth ramen bowls. Dadbao. He presented Boruto with two massive black bowls of instant ramen, the premium kind that had special care given to the seasoning packages. Boruto blinked for a bit before laughing and nodding his head. I can't believe you'd so easily offer me your precious stash after thinking I was going to steal it, Dadbasa. Once he was done laughing, Boruto settled down and agreed to some ramen. Sure, I will, but wouldn't Ichiraku still be the better option? Naruto scratched his cheek in embarrassment. Of course. Ichiraku's is the best ramen in the world. But I want this dinner to be special, just the two of us, family, Tabeo. Naruto ended quietly with the word, family, rolling off his tongue. Boruto felt how foreign the word must have been to his younger father. Uncle Sasuke was right, Dad really was suffering back then. Boruto realized how much him being here meant to Naruto. Boruto smiled, alright, then what are we waiting for? Let's dig in, he exclaimed. This caused Naruto's own mood to be lifted back up. Yeah, let's get the water into these things. Naruto placed the two bowls of ramen onto the table, one in front of Boruto and the other on the opposite side of the table. Naruto returned with the kettle full of boiling water and filled each bowl with its contents. And unlike other bowls of ramen, the premium ramen took 5 minutes to cook through. So naturally, Naruto took this time to speak with Boruto. He began, so, Boruto. The aforementioned individual looked up, yeah dad. Naruto bit his lip and stammered out, do I, bring Sasuke back to the village? He hoped for a good answer. Boruto simply stared at his father for a moment, making him fear the worst until Boruto nodded, yeah, you do. In fact, Uncle Sasuke is my master back in my time, he revealed. Naruto's eyes widen, so he does come back. That's a relief. That means everything I'm doing won't be for nothing, Dadbeo. He cheered with much happiness. But Naruto wasn't finished with the questions yet, the next one that came up was obvious. And also, do I become Hokage? Naruto asked with hope in his eyes. Boruto chuckled a bit, of course you do. You become the 7th Hokage, the greatest of them all. Loved by everyone and you love them all because the village is your family, at least that's what you told me. Family, speaking of which, that reminded Naruto. Speaking of family, if I had a son, that means I got married right? Naruto shifted in his spot. Boruto nodded, yep, and you want to know who you married? He guessed right. Naruto confirmed this with a nod of his head. And just to be start off, no. It's not Aunt Sakura, she married Uncle Sasuke. Boruto stated firmly. Naruto however, wasn't bothered by this piece of news, Sakura and Sasuke get married. So I really do make good on that promise, Naruto coughed, anyway, no I can't see myself with Sakura without me getting beaten up daily. Naruto reasoned. Boruto snorted, yeah, Auntie is just like Sarada, who beats me up for being stupid. Boruto could relate to his father's pain. And Naruto shivered for his future son, oh, I feel bad for you. Okay. Then not Sakura, not Ino, she's always kind of mean to me even if I've done nothing wrong. Boruto agreed with that, well I did feel that Aunt Ino gave off that impression. She was a bit more sassy than others. Naruto immediately crossed Tenten off, not Tenten, I think she likes her weapons more than people. Boruto laughed at his father's comment, now that was a good one. I reckon, even in the future, she refuses to stop selling weapons instead of toys, Tsubasa. This got a good rise out of Naruto who couldn't help but laugh at the knowledge. Ha ha ha, who would have thought that learning about the future would be so fun? He and his son shared a good laugh for a while. Then the laughter turned to silence, now it was time for the final guess. Naruto's eyes narrowed in doubt, he wasn't too sure of his chances with this particular person. Before he made his guess, he asked his future son, so did I marry someone from Konoha? And received a nod of confirmation in return. Naruto placed his hand beneath his chin, so it's someone from Konoha, and she's someone I'm friends with now right? Boruto confirmed this, yes, in fact, I think she's kind of shy around you at this time, he added hoping his dad would guess already. And Naruto, after much hesitance gave his answer, did I marry Hinata? He asked with doubt in his voice. Boruto smiled, that's right. My mom is Hinata Uzumaki. The scariest person I know, Tsubasa. He joked. Naruto laughed at the claim due to how ridiculous it sounded. Hinata. Scary. Aside from the one time she hid behind a metal pole at night and creepily smiled at him. Then no way was she scary. But jokes aside, Naruto sighed in disbelief. I really marry Hinata? Boruto gave his father a hard stare. What's with that face? Is there something you don't like about mom? He asked with a bit of a bite to his voice. Which Naruto caught and waved his hands. No. I really do like Hinata. I think she's really cool and awesome despite what others say about her. But, he looked down with a sad look on his face. Boruto tilted his head and asked him, then what's wrong? Naruto looked at his future son and told him, I don't think she likes me that much, Tabeo. What? Mom not liking dad? How could that be? Mom had always said she'd been in love with dad since childhood. Therefore, Boruto asked, what makes you think that, Tsubasa? Genuinely curious as to what his father actually thought of his mother at this time. Naruto scratched his head as he wondered how he could explain this. Then he felt a familiar presence outside of his apartment and grinned. I'll show you Boruto. I think she's outside hiding somewhere right now. He stood up and walked towards his window. Boruto stood up as well when his father opened the window and wanted to ask, how would you know? But he didn't have to ask. Naruto leapt down from his apartment window and towards a metal light pole. When he landed, someone could be heard squeaking behind the object. Naruto gave the hidden individual a grin. Hey there, Hinata. What are you up to, Tabeo? He put his hands behind his head. The dark-haired girl hesitantly stepped out. Her pale face was now peachy from embarrassment at being discovered by her crush. Naruto-kun, I was just wanted how you were doing. Hinata didn't quite meet his eyes. Naruto was a bit confused by her actions which contradicted her intentions. If she was here to see him, why hide from him? Then why are you hiding out here for? Tabeo, why don't you come inside for dinner? I never get to speak to you that much. Naruto suggested to her and pointed back to his apartment. However, the poor girl's mind only processed a few choice words of Naruto's. Dinner. In Naruto's apartment. Just the two of us. Her mind went on to conjure who knows what she thought of. As per consequence, her face lit up a bright red as if she had been soaking in hot water for too long. And Naruto caught it. Hinata, your face is heating up, do you have a fever? Let me check. He moved his hand onto her forehead to check her temperature. They stayed like that for a while. Hinata couldn't move, whereas Naruto was even more confused than before. She's fine. Does that mean she's just mad at me, Tabeo? He wondered. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to be so forward with her. So he removed his palm from Hinata's forehead and instead placed it behind his head. Sheepishly smiling with a tint of red, he told her the good news, well, looks like you're okay. So how about we go in? But Hinata suddenly screeched and apologetically bowed. I'm sorry. But father expects me back. Goodbye, Naruto-kun. She rushed off back to her home, leaving Naruto in the dust, not knowing that she had made him a tad bit upset. But Naruto sighed and shrugged it off. He quickly jumped back up to where his apartment window was. Boruto was standing there, having observed his future father's and mother's interaction. Naruto pointed in the general direction Hinata ran off to. Ya see, that's what I mean, Tabeo. Naruto made his point. Blinking a bit, Boruto had to ask, see what? That you were really forward with her, Tsubasa. Not quite understanding the point Naruto was trying to make. Naruto shook his head as he climbed through the window. No, every time I ask her to hang out, or catch her following me, she always has some reason to avoid me. So I don't think she likes me too much as a friend at the moment, let alone someone she'd want to marry, Tabeo. He ended with a depressed sigh. Then it clicked for Boruto. He understood exactly why his father didn't see his mother in a romantic light in his younger day. Oh, I get it. But are you sure she isn't just shy around you? He added to convince his future father that maybe things weren't as it seemed. But Naruto had a reply for that. She is shy, but I've seen her talk to complete strangers, no problem. And I think she might like Kiba or Shino, Tabeo. He added just to reinforce that fact. Now that actually made even more sense. Everyone knew his mother's side of the story about how Naruto didn't notice her feelings, but barely anyone knew his father's side of the story. So dad does have feelings for mom at this time. He just thinks mom doesn't like him because how much she hides from him. Tsubasa. He concluded and thought about something to do later during his stay here. Whilst he was thinking, Naruto asked another question, so how did I do it? Boruto blinked. Do what? Naruto scratched one of his flustered cheeks and said more specifically. How did I get her to like to me? Do I impress her in the future? Datbeo. This made a smile crack on Boruto's face. So his dad is interested in mom. Now this was a good way to get them started. Though as much Boruto wanted his parents together, this was something they had to do themselves. I'm not going to tell you. That's something you'll have to do on your own, Dadbasa. He told his father. Naruto shuddered. Oh man. Guess I might ask if she wants to eat dango together again for old time's sake. He recalled how long it had been since they had last been on a team together. Boruto waved him off. That's a start, and now onto another topic. Where do I sleep, Tsubasa? And like that, Naruto's mind was off Hinata and now thinking about his son's well-being. Oh, that's right. I don't know what to do about that. You could have my bed. I'll just sleep on the couch. Naruto flailed. Boruto laughed a bit and had to ask, really? I thought you'd make me sleep on the couch because you wouldn't want to give it up, Tsubasa. Naruto flinched a bit and admitted, well, I was going to do that, but then I heard that parents do this for their children, and besides. The couch is actually pretty comfy, Tabeo. Naruto brightened up the mood. Boruto stayed silent in surprise for a moment. But he grinned at his younger father. Alright, if you insist. Now that sleeping arrangements were decided, Boruto decided to pass the time by playing on his phone. Doing this caught Naruto's attention. Oi, what that Boruto? He stood on tippy toes trying to see what Boruto was doing. Boruto replied, dividing his attention, just looking at some photos and videos I took last night. He replied. Naruto's eyes sparkled. Wait. Photos. As in from the future. Tabeo. Boruto nodded. Yes, why? You want to see? More than happy to show him. Naruto grinned and nodded like a kid high on sugar. So the two sat down at the kitchen table, flicking through photos that Boruto had shown Tsunade earlier besides the ones of his family. Nevertheless, each and every one of them got a good chuckle out of Naruto. Bwahahaha. Shikamaru has a kid too. With Tamari. I knew they were dating. Datbeo. And Choji's daughter's looks just as, big-boned as him. He ended a little too hesitant to call Choji fat. Boruto's own laughter was being set off as well. I reckon, and here's one of Inojin with my best friend Denki trying to get his animation up and running, Tsubasa. He showed a photo of Inojin fidgeting over when his animation was going to finally be processed onto the big screen at the party. Naruto was off laughing again. What? Ino and Sai have a kid too. That's amazing, Datbeo. Ha ha ha. He was banging his hand on the table at this point. Boruto couldn't help but laugh as well. His father in the future would have never laughed like this in moments like this. But he still had enough control of himself to speak. I reckon. Even great-grandma Tsunade pretty much said the same thing. He let him know. But what he called Tsunade made Naruto cough on his spit. Great-grandma. You didn't actually call her that, did you, Datbeo? His cheeks burned from laughter. Boruto nodded with his lips pressed tightly. And she did not like it one bit. And that was the last laugh they shared. For Naruto, having his future son here made his life so much brighter already. Once the two blondes settled down, Boruto flicked through a special album of photos and videos on his phone. These in particular made Naruto pause. He choked out, huh? Is that? Boruto smiled fondly. Yep. That's you and mom helping our cousins out with the family feast. He and his father eyed the photo. It was of his future mother, Hinata Uzumaki, trying to lay out trays of baked goods and finger foods she had made. But her husband Naruto, being obsessed with anything she made, especially sweets, was sneakily trying to steal a bite. No surprise that it became a playful battle between them. Hinata was simultaneously preparing the food whilst keeping Naruto at bay, and Naruto was terrorizing her and the food. Despite the bother, they were both laughing and lovingly touching faces against one another. Why Boruto had a photo of them like this? He thought maybe they'd like a photo together from their recently returned son. Not to mention, it was a good thing because judging from the teen Naruto's face, he was enamored with the photo. And that's Mom, as I remember her. He tried to break the silence. But Naruto didn't hear him. All he could do was stare at Hinata's face. Wow, Hinata is so. Naruto couldn't believe how beautiful Hinata was in this moment. Not just her looks, but the way she carried herself and that smile. He remembered seeing it once when he was still a little boy. Meanwhile, Boruto raised an eyebrow at his future father. Was his mother really that pretty? He shrugged. If that's what his dad was into, then he was free to his own taste. Then Boruto swiped to another image, snapping Naruto out of his trance. What? Hey, who's this girl, Dadbeo? He pointed out the little girl with bluish, ink hair like Hinata's, but eyes like his own and whisker marks upon her face. Boruto smiled fondly at the image. That's Himawari, my younger sister by 2 years. She's gotten so big now, it's hard to believe she used to be barely half the height of my leg, Dadbasa. He recalled the adorable girl who always wanted her big brother to carry her on his back. Whilst Boruto was reminiscing about his time, Naruto's couldn't stop his tears from falling, his son, and his daughter, and he also had a beautiful wife. Naruto felt a pleasant warmth in his chest. My family, it sobbed so hard to believe that someone sob like me could sob. He wiped away the tears. As he did this, Boruto placed a comforting hand on Naruto's shoulder. You mean our family? I'm here now and you know you won't be alone from now on, Dad. Naruto looked at his future son for what seemed like ages, before smiling widely and then saying, "Thank you, Boruto, and can I ask?" Naruto drew on until he pointed behind Himawari in the image. Who's that boy behind her? His tone became very sharp. Boruto looked at his phone and chuckled. Oh, that's Inojin. He kept her happy while I was gone, Tsubasa. Why did you ask? He wondered. Naruto frowned at him. I don't like how close he is to her. He expressed his dislike. Boruto half-heartedly laughed. I should have known that this wouldn't change. He tried to say otherwise. He's not a bad person. He actually really cool. I think you'll like him, Dadbasa. Naruto looked away in disdain. If he's anything like Sai, then I doubt that. Boruto tensed up. Before his younger father could become too protective, he swiped to a photo of his father and his master, Sasuke. If Naruto's breath hadn't hitched before, then this image got to him. Sasuke, he came back to us, Naruto's voice cracked. Looking down, with his hair shadowing his eyes, he began to tremble in a manner that looked like he was becoming insane. Which had Boruto believe that, maybe this was a bad idea. But Naruto shot up and cheered, all right. If that's how the future turned out, I'll work twice as hard to make it happen, Dadbeo. This comment surprised Boruto. Dad, he smiled at his future father. So this is what Uncle Sasuke meant when he said my dad worked for everything. Boruto stood up and began walking past his dad. I'm going to call it a night. See you in the morning, Dad. Boruto waved his good night. Naruto grinned but not before adding, all right, sleep tight, but you don't have to call me Dad if you don't want to, Tabeo. Not really meaning it. Boruto held up a hand and replied, I can't help it. That's all you've been to me so far. Before he headed into Naruto's bedroom, leaving behind a stunned Naruto. Naruto stood paralyzed. He was nothing a father to him so far, that means. He smiled. I'm doing a good job as a dad, for now at least, Dadbeo. He grinned as he jumped into the living room couch. Just what other things could he and his son do tomorrow? Omake. The last parody. It had been a great many years since the Fourth Great Uganda War, against the lowly army who threatened their But after the efforts of the legendary Knuckles, Gastons, he had brought peace to the world and brought back a dear friend, his right-hand man, Castro. But now, after 3 years, a new threat from outer space came and took his queen. It had broken his heart beyond anything. His words carried his sadness, my queen. Why? However, a pink Knuckles told him, Gastons, my brudda, don't you think it's weird? The queen had to save her sister. Which is why she. But Gastons needed no further explanation, huh? My queen still. She still loves me. I must go now. A few minutes later, after Gastons rescued the queen, he was stalled by a white Knuckles with green eyes. Gastons clucked a white devil. I will not let you destroy Uganda. He charged the white devil with a ball of energy akin to a Rasengan. The white devil matched him with a multitude of green energy projectiles, but Gastons weaved and deflected many before colliding with the white devil's emerald energy field. Seeing as the two were evenly matched, the white devil summoned forth a giant rock monster. Go forth and destroy the Y. He ordered the golem. However, Gastons a trump card. He called upon his hidden power. He shouted as he began to glow golden, Commander. His battle cry lasted as his hidden companion was summoned forth. Then as soon as Gastons was finished yelling, enormous being turned out to be an even larger Knuckles, who had the words, the Y, tattooed upon its chest. And he shouted his name with might and pride. Ebola. The being's scream held such power, it vaporized the massive golem who retreated back into the white devil's storage of power to avoid getting cancer. The white devil was cornered. No, this cannot be. The Y is a dead meme. But Gaston had something to say about that. No, my brudda, a ball of wiggling golden energy swirled in his hand. The Y isn't about clucking, spitting, or even the Ebola. He began to charge the white devil, who was stunned by his speech. Gaston thrusted his attack into the white devil. The Y is about being yourself. And bring happiness to others. No matter what why it hurts you. His words seemingly amplifying his attack. The white devil screamed in agony, ah! Whilst Gaston finished this battle with, Ebola. Boom. And the battle was over. He dispelled the commander in his golden form. And when he did that, his queen came running to him. Gastons. You saved me. The queen, a blue Knuckles came to him. Gaston bowed, anything for you my queen. The blue Knuckles smiled, how can I repay you? Cluck. Gastons looked into the queen's eyes, give me a kiss. The queen however was nervous, but isn't that kinda gay? Gastons looked around for a while before shrugging, never gay. If it isn't a Twilight story. They both giggled with the queen adding, that is true my brudda. Before the two suddenly made kissing noises and going on the grow too. Okay, let's stop right there.